Is the Gwen online or not?
Yes, do not think so. Do we have Gwen online? No.
Janine, is Gwen online?
Gwen,
What? You muted yourself, Janine.
oh, sorry. I'm checking Gwen. No, I'm not seeing her.
No?
No.
Wait. All right. As always, greetings. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this November meeting of the Community Board 4 Transportation Committee. Happy to see you all here. I'm just going to read the standard language before our meetings. MCB4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and/or extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on, and this meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel, and a transcript is being recorded for all to see. And so, as we usually do, as we kick off these meetings, we just would like to go around and introduce ourselves. I see we have 33 participants online with us this evening. I know some of whom are presenters, but others I'm sure are eager community members who are eager to hear the presentations this evening. So let's just go around quickly and introduce ourselves. My name is Jesse Greenwald. I am the co-chair of this committee.
Christine Berthe, co-chair.
Liam Buckley, member of the committee.
David Warren, member of the committee. Rodney Washington, member.
Frank Miller, member.
Tina Nelson, member.
Alan Austin, member. Rich Herford, public member.
Charlie Todd, public member.
Greg Robert, member.
Yes.
Alan Long, member.
Pete Diaz, member.
Max 15 member. Excellent.
And we have Paul Devlin.
And we have a honorary
Paul Devlin here, witness.
witness. Excellent. So that's everyone in the room. I don't think we have any other members online this evening. We may have some late stragglers, but this is pretty good attendance for us, so I'm really happy. So we do have three pretty large items this evening, so let's get right into it. The first item on the agenda is a presentation from the New York State Department of Transportation on the Route 9A study, which we've referenced here before, but now we can really get a bigger picture of what is going on and what is being studied. So I will turn it over to whoever is here from, I see Ian. Anyone else? Just you, Ian?
Well, there are a few of us online. I'm here with.
Oh, great. Oh, I see Jeffrey. Sorry. Yeah, I see Rajat.
Jeffrey.
Anyone? Yeah.
And Rajat Agarwal will be joining from State DOT, but I will be the only one presenting.
Okay.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready. Want me to start?
You're good. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Let me do this. Share screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. I'll introduce myself. I am Ian Francis with the New York State Department of Transportation. I work in the Regional Planning Office here in Long Island City. And this evening, I'm here to present our study on Route 9A for mobility and safety enhancements along the corridor. All right, so it's a relatively short presentation, so I know you've got a lot to cover this evening, so I will move along as soon as
And Ian, is there any way just to move the microphone just a little bit more directly in front of your mouth? We're having a little bit of quality.
Okay.
We're just to the extent you can just project a little bit more. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Hold on just a moment, and I will fix that. Oh, keyboard is frozen. All right, I will talk louder.
Great. Thanks.
Hopefully that's a little better.
It is, yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is our study, and this is the agenda we're going to go over.
No, we don't see any.
Yeah, except now you did just take away the shared screen. I don't know if you
all right, let me fix that. Okay, I'm going to fix my audio since the shared screen is gone. Is this better?
Oh,
Okay, all right, so let's do this again.
He's in the room. Yeah, great.
Okay. Okay, so here is our agenda. It's we're gonna take a quick look at this study corridor. I'll describe the corridor, some concerns we've heard in the past, touch on our objectives and the process. So, and at the end, there's a point for discussion and questions. So we'll just handle discussions at the end. All right. So the study corridor. The study will take place on the West Side Highway from West 59th Street to Battery Place. It encompasses a 5-mile long corridor with a beautiful landscape boulevard neighboring Hudson River Park. Now, while the corridor is a route of travel, it is also a destination for residents and tourists in New York City. There are a number of landmarks which not only shape the physical landscape, but also play a significant role in the local community's identity and history. I know you guys are up north with all the businesses. And so let's go on. So about the corridor. Now let's discuss the past and present changes to the Route 9A corridor. Over the years, it is apparent that Lower Manhattan has seen a rise of new residential buildings, parks, and public spaces. Nonetheless, Route 9A has become more congested with vehicles, bicyclists, as well as pedestrians. We've seen major developments in Hudson River Park and Battery Park City, which have provided essential green space for recreation and leisure for the residents and visitors of New York City. On the left there, you'll see a photo of the roadway circa 2000s. I think people are heading up towards the Old Trade Center. And on the right, this is a cross section of the bike path with the vehicles, and you can just see all the building that's going on and all the activities. Oops. My computer is not behaving. Okay. So about the corridor. The study area is used by many motor vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians, which is a vital reason why the study is taking place. The study's goal is to enhance safety and mobility for all users. The study area spans many neighborhoods, including Hell's Kitchen, Chelsea, West Village, Lower Manhattan, and the Fidei District. Importantly, the study's location serves as a variety of regional, arterial, and local transportation activities and needs, and is known as an intermodal access provider to 3 Hudson River ferries, passenger liners, liner terminals, excursion ships, and a heliport. It also serves as the terminus point for 5 crosstown bus lines. Now, what are some of the concerns we've heard? Understanding these concerns and more is critical to the study because it allows us to address real-world challenges that the community is facing to ensure the study remains relevant and responsive to the needs of the community. Based on recent feedback and research, here are some of the key concerns we've identified. Is a need to reduce crashes. There's the safety concerns for pedestrians and bicyclists, and there's a need for better connectivity across Route 9A between the neighborhoods and Hudson River Park. Resiliency along the park front against flood events is also another thing we've heard a lot of. We'll see more of that in another slide. And there are some safety concerns regarding e-bikes utilizing the shared space. Now, if there are any other concerns that you can think of, I ask that you hold on and that we can discuss them further on in the presentation. There is a space for that. As I mentioned, resiliency has been brought to our attention as a major community concern, understandably, and the options and solutions will be explored as the study moves forward. Additionally, we will be looking into local partnerships and subject matter experts that can provide insight and expertise through this process. Now, what are our study goals? Many users travel Route 9A, whether they're drivers, bicyclists, or pedestrians, and as a result, the study will focus on increased mobility and safety needs along the corridor. The study seeks to better understand the current and future needs of the corridor, to evaluate transportation strategies, and recommend transportation concepts for further analysis. We'll evaluate the environmental, natural resources, cultural, and community needs, and we're seeking to actively involve local stakeholders and organizations, transportation advocacy groups, subject matter experts, and the public. The goal throughout will be to document the community's needs and priorities. So, what's our process? Outreach and engagement will begin at the start of the study to better understand the corridor and establish a vision. Our first phase is the existing conditions and corridor vision. We'll introduce the study to elected officials, community leaders, and the public, and try to gain a better understanding of the project area based on data collection, previous studies, and the community's lived experiences. The involvement in this phase will shape the study vision to reflect the project needs and community priorities. Now, phase 2, the concept development. We're going to share options for the corridor based on future transportation needs with the stakeholders, the public, agency partners, and the Transportation Partnering Committee. Phase 3, the concept refinement, will be based on feedback from phases 1 and 2. The study team will develop and share transportation concepts with the Transportation Partnering Committee and interested stakeholders at a sketch level with associated impacts. And finally, the concept recommendations. Based on feedback, the study team will refine and finalize concept recommendations with associated impact and high-level costs for feedback. So how do we get the community involved? Well, as we move forward, it's important to remember that the success of the study, the Route 9A study, relies heavily on community involvement throughout. Public involvement will weave in throughout the study so that concepts are reflective of the public's needs. First and foremost, we're looking to engage with individuals and groups during each phase of our study to create an inclusive and open process, fostering mobility and safety for all users along the corridor. Importantly, we hope and expect to have a high level of involvement for the study since it encompasses such a heavily populated area. For our first group, the Transportation Partnering Committee will be a group of community leaders and technical experts who will help guide, provide input, and share a broad range of perspectives. The Transportation Partnering Committee will play a critical role in the development of the study and will meet 4 times throughout to be advisory and help synthesize feedback. Membership will include local stakeholders, transportation groups, local community boards, and transportation subject matter experts. Now, the second outreach touchpoint will be briefings with community stakeholders. The study team will present to targeted local organizations and interested stakeholders for individual briefings throughout the study. Briefings will be focused during phases 2 and 3. Lastly, the public will have the opportunity to take part in public information meetings to ensure that the study addresses the real needs and concerns that matter most to those who are directly impacted by the study or located in or around the study area. There will be 3 in-person meetings for the public during phases 1, 2, and 4 of the study. To broaden the reach of the public, there will be virtual public meetings that will replicate the information provided at the in-person meetings. In-person meetings will be held in accessible locations near the corridor. after work hours and will be held in a variety of formats, from presentations to open houses and workshop formats. As for virtual public meetings, they will be hosted and recorded on Zoom with live polling and public comment. These are some of the agencies that we plan to work with during the study. As you can see, New York State DOT, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, MTA, New York City Parks, Battery Park City Authority, Hudson River Park Trust, New York City DOT, and New York City Planning. So this will be a 26-month study. We started back in September and we plan to run through the winter of 2026. As you can see, most of our time is focused around phases 1 and 2, where there's a lot of community outreach and input. But we will spend a lot of time also in phases 3 and 4 as we distill the concepts. And how will you get involved, and how do we keep you up to date? Well, as we move forward to the conclusion of the presentation, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the engagement. We've introduced some important information, but this is just the beginning. We're in the process of setting up a study website and study email. We hope to get those online relatively soon. Additionally, we'll be creating, and we will have our social media will also be in place, and there will be press releases. And we look forward to you reaching out to us. There will be a transportation partner meeting relatively soon, which you will be invited to. And now I'll open the floor to comments and questions.
Thank you so much, Ian. Captivating presentation. So let's do our normal procedure. Our typical procedure here is we ask questions of the presenters as a committee. We open it up to the public for comments, questions, and then we give our comments. So particularly here, it seems like this is an opportunity for us to start providing the state DOT with our concerns regarding this particular corridor and the West Side Highway and the bike lanes. So absolutely have those ready to go. But to the extent you have any questions about the presentation, now would be the time to ask those.
And I have a notepad so I can take many notes. And also Rajat Agarwal and Jeff Rick are online, and they are also assisting with note taking.
I saw Charlie's hand first.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ian. We're very excited to see that some of these concerns that we have are going to be addressed. My question is on the timeline. I was very excited about this until I see that the recommendations don't come until winter 2026. And that's long before implementation of anything starts. I wonder, is there any way that the timeline could be compressed, given that we all live here and want to enjoy the fruits of this study sooner rather than later?
It takes a while, but we want to do a lot of public outreach, so that's going to take quite some time. And we don't want to give a short shift to the public outreach and the input. So that's why we've have the time allotted. If there is a way to shorten it, we will try, but we do want to hear from everyone and give them the opportunity to provide their input. So that's why it's as long as it is.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Ian. State DOT has done a couple of surveys in the past. I don't know if anything has come from those in terms of recommendations, anything concrete, but are there any issues from those past surveys that you're thinking of now, and you could express to us about maybe some of the things that you're looking at specifically, or is that too early?
We have done traffic counts and safety work as in the past, and there have been studies, and we're at the initial part of this study. So we're going to look at all that we've done in the past and pull out of that to enlighten us as to what's moving forward. And as we we've already met with community boards 1, 2, and the electeds. And we heard some of we've heard their concerns, and we're meeting with you so that we can get your concerns also to help guide us forward as to what the community's concerns are. Because you live there, so you have the lived experience and you can enlighten us as to what we want to move forward with.
Yeah, the study's really nice, but I'm a little concerned. I mean, going back to when the terrorists were on the West Side Highway, the very next day you put up primitive bollards. And you still haven't replaced them with anything more advanced. I don't think you need a study or something like that. You just look on the World Bollards website and you want to repair better bollards. I mean, even before we get to the study, little improvements like that have us a little concerned. Now you're doing studies and you can't even get this done. So, I mean, what is going on with the bollards and stuff like that?
The question being, what is going on?
Even before you do the study, you should clear that up.
Well, is there going to be, just to rephrase that, is there going to be a phase where you take a list of quick fixes that would be very helpful for the public, and then you go ahead and do them in parallel to doing the study?
The study is looking at short, medium, and long-term options as we move forward. And if there is low-hanging fruit and let's say there's a project in the area, then we may be able to do a change order and address those low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, so, is there any preliminary thought in terms of what sort of project scopes that we're looking at? Is there already money that's being set aside for any kind of fixes to the outcomes from the study? You know, are you anticipating that this is gonna be changing light timing and maybe color replacement, or is it possible you might get to the point where you realize we need to rethink the street and it's not gonna be more of a residential or more of a neighborhood street instead of a highway approach, and that's gonna be a bigger scope? So is there any preliminary thoughts and budgeting that's already being anticipated?
This is the beginning of the study, and all options are on the table. We're going out now, collecting input from the community, and analyzing and collecting data. And this is the beginning of the study. So as we move forward, we don't want to start off with preconceived notions. So that's why everything is on the table.
Just based on some of the confused faces that I'm seeing around the table, I mean, I think the idea is really, you know, they are actually studying any idea potentially that they are given about how to improve this corridor. So we're gonna give them all of our ideas, but I just wanna hold that now for just any more questions.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up and we'll just do rapid fire comments, but.
Very quick question. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned bunches of agencies that you're working with. What is the kind of relationship in the sense that, do you have a working group that's going to sort of have people from various agencies coming in to kind of work on the study, or you will do the study and share it with those people?
We have a consultant that we've brought on board to work with us to do the study. HDR is a consulting firm we're working with. And the transportation working group will consist of members from the different community groups, agencies, and it's going to be an extensive group so that we can get everyone's participation and input, along with the stakeholders meeting, where we will go out and meet the different stakeholders and public meetings.
One quick question. Do you have a sort of timeline whether the consultant might have provided to you, or you guys have put it together in terms of what happens when for phases you described? Do you have something of that nature?
Did we get a slide up? We just,
Yeah.
one of the things we got was a timeline of when things are being studied and implemented and.
No, what I mean is in terms of time frame, there's sort of each step is sort of described. They have a chart that they typically prepare for majority of these kind of projects.
Is that different than what we saw?
Yeah.
More detail.
More detail?
Right, I didn't,
Yeah.
I'm dying.
Well, I'm guessing they don't have that. Go ahead. This will make it the last question though, so then we're gonna open, I wanna make sure.
Yeah, the last
And then
question.
we'll do comments.
So I have two questions is, one of them is, CB1, CB2, CB4. The last presentation was CB1, the last effort was CB1, CB2, and CB4 didn't get anything. And here again, there was, presentation to CB1, CB2, and then we had to raise our hand and wave our arms and say, what about us? So I want to make sure that what protocol are you going to use to make sure that you are treating the three community board equally and give them equal attention?
You are the last community board that we're meeting with, but you are not the least. We
We have to make a bunch of phone calls to get it, and
Yes.
so, I mean, our portion of the space is very intense. And, so we need to make sure that it's not going to be then a political process where one community board gets more result than another.
We will look at the entire corridor equally and give each one space, equally space. Now, as you know, your corridor is very different from further south. So that is our we've already walked the route and ridden the route multiple times, and we will continue to go out there to see. And yes, we
Okay,
are going.
We're going to hold you accountable to have as many results and studies as the other places, right?
Okay.
I have another question, which is, are you going to look into the streets which are connected to the highway? And what I mean by that is when we're talking about connecting the neighborhood to the highway, this is generally done by the way of streets, which are either have traffic light, or not enough space for pedestrian, etc. So, penetrating inside the beyond the highway, inside the streets, is really an important part, and I'm wondering how you're going to do that.
We're looking. Yes, but we are looking at the corridor, and we're looking reasonably down the streets that connect to it.
Okay.
And we are doing data collection throughout. Now, yes, the connections, it does connect to the sites, to the intersecting roadways. So we'll look at those and the different crossings, because those were some of the concerns that were brought up.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm gonna open it up to the public / non-committee members. I also see Leslie, his hand is raised. Leslie was with us from CB4, so I wanna make sure she gets moved over as part of the public. But if anyone in the public has comments or questions, and comments can absolutely include things that you would like this study to include, that our state should look into as possible improvements, please go ahead. But I'm gonna go with Paul, who's in the room first, and then to you, Leslie. But go ahead, Paul.
Great, thanks. I have two questions. One is a follow-up to Christine's point about the study area. It would make sense for the study to include like 2 or 3 avenue blocks east of the river, because then everybody's coming into from there. So how do pedestrians, cars, and bikes move east to west to get onto 9A and then beyond onto the Hudson River Park? So I think that is a very important point. Christine, we expand that study area. But the second thing I wanted to ask about was the various agencies that you list as partnering with. One of the results of the bollards is because NYPD said we have to block this. FDNY has to have access. Sanitation has to have access. The snow plowing that occurs. So what is the integration of safety and sanitation in the study area? And how do you interact with those agencies that actually have to service the roadway and the bike trails?
Ian, could you hear that question?
Yes, I did.
Great.
Those are the initial agencies that we're reaching out to. We will invite FDNY and NYPD to participate in at some level and discuss with them, because even with the bollards, when the bollards were in place, as you said, NYPD did set requirements and specs so that what went out there was accessible to them in emergencies and as needed. And
Sanitation has two facilities on the east side of that roadway. So how does sanitation get access to and from that roadway from their facilities?
well, we will invite sanitation to join the transportation partnering committee, because they do have a large facility. I think it's at 55th Street.
Yeah.
Thank you. Leslie, floor is yours for comments, questions.
Thank you, Transportation Committee. And thank you, Ian, for the presentation, the informational presentation. Before I ask my questions, I just want to reiterate what Christine said about the equal attention to Community Board 4, especially since I guess I would consider that we are the connector from the main highway north to where it meets at 59th, where the pedestrians start to factor in. I think that's a really important connection. So, and also where the Manhattan Cruise Terminal is, and there's a huge volume of influx of people there, where you probably wouldn't see maybe a little more south down along Route 9A. But anyway, my first question is, how is resiliency being included in the study?
Resiliency was brought up with the other community boards, and we are looking at it. This is a transportation mobility study, but we are on the water. This roadway is on the water, so we are going to spend time looking at how to improve resiliency up and down the corridor. Lower Manhattan is being addressed with the Battery Park City authorities, larger mobility study, but north of Chambers Street, we will spend some time looking at that as well.
Okay, thank you, because that's an important element, obviously, after what we've seen with some of the superstorms. Are there any limitations to the study? And I say this because I'm sure the committee will discuss what some options are, but say we want the whole 9A to be underground. But, if we want another Boston Big Dig, are there limitations to this study, or what are we looking at?
Boston Big Dig. It's a visioning study, and we will look at reasonable and to come up with reasonable visions as we move forward. There are a lot of utilities underneath Route 9A, so that is something we'll also have to think of as we develop these visions. So,
well, I'm just saying what's reasonable, because we can go over 9A. We don't have to go fully under, but I'm just asking.
Going over 9A, I think there might be a couple of people who
I don't know how we can, but yeah. And I guess my last question before, I'm sure the committee has obviously spent a lot of time on this, but you talk about the Transportation Partnering Committee, and that's what you're calling it. Are there also going to be members of the park and environment communities in the represented in the study
Leslie,
scope?
I think it's up to us to figure who are going to be the representatives, I think, and so we should discuss that.
I'm not saying from CB4. I'm just saying in general, the communities, meaning the community out there, like the environment community or the park community, not CB4 specific.
Yeah, Hudson River Park is one of the people that we've already slated to be on, and we've reached out to them. They will participate with us, and the New York City Parks Department, and we'll look to you if there are additional folks that you want. It's just we're here to listen. We're here to listen to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. And with that, now for the fun part of our comments. So first, Ian, I know you said you had your pen and yellow pad. Obviously appreciate you taking notes, but we will be writing a letter on this with all of our comments. So don't get too.
And it will be on YouTube.
And you will be on YouTube for later reference. But I'm imagining that people have a lot of ideas for what they would like to study. This is one of these cool opportunities where we can really ask for anything we want. So, feel free to use your imagination, think big, and I will try to take notes, but to the extent we could just do this somewhat rapid fire and just go around and everyone say their ideas. So actually, why don't we work just around the table and then we'll go back around. So Viren, go ahead.
So very quickly, I think what Paul and Christine brought up about cross streets coming in, I think there are very many streets and all of them might not be very important, but the significant cross streets like 14, 34, 42nd, 59. So you could probably sort of frame sort of question around those significant cross connections and how they sort of terminate into sort of corridor. The other part that I would mention, again, the extension of the same point, is some of those sort of cross streets are leading you to ferry terminal. They're leading you to a particular place which actually has a significant amount of traffic coming in. Some of them are bus routes, etc., etc. I think so. One request would be for them to identify what these cross connection points might be on a map and sort of include that within the framework. The second question, which is sort of a little bit almost academic, so to speak, the things are changing. You know, over a period of time, you've sort of seen highways change. You're talking about BQE being potentially dismantled. Is there any significant change that we could ask them to look into? That maybe how would this highway change over the next 30, 40, 50 years? Maybe it's not so many lanes, maybe it sort of becomes something that includes mass transit in a particular way. I'm not saying they should do it right now, but make these kind of projections because I think we're moving in a very different direction in terms of as humanity as New York City, embracing new technologies and urban design is actually influencing quite a few decisions about how we were looking at auto-centric ways of designing these corridors versus more human-centric.
Great. Charlie.
So a few ideas from me. One would be, Leslie brought up the cruise ship terminal. I think in CB4, that is the absolute worst part of the Greenway from 59th all the way to Battery Place is the area where the cruise terminal is. I believe after 9/11, it was closed off to public access by the water there for safety reasons, but you have like 2 feet of pedestrian space there and there's constant conflict with cyclists and it's just ugly and generally horrible. So for our area of the Greenway, I think that would be a very key study of how can we improve that, maybe in concert with a shore power project for the cruise ships. Also wanted to echo what some others have said about thinking big. I love what Viren's talking about. What is this like in 30 years? I think, the big dig is a big swing, but I don't think it's crazy to think of something that big. Or at the very least, the route is called 12th Avenue sometimes, and if it looked like 11th Avenue and 10th Avenue and 9th Avenue, it'd be a very different road. And thinking big about a dedicated bus lane or a light rail in the middle, or as the borough president, Mark Levine, has called for having a lane dedicated to micromobility. So we have the e-bikes and the delivery guys and the white city bikes in a faster lane. So my 10-year-old child can bike his regular bike in the regular lane. So I'd love to see that. And I think the New York State law about banning of any bike with a motor on the Greenway is something that needs to be addressed, because if you go to the Greenway, it's probably 50% of users. And some of that is mopeds that have no business being there, but some of it is families going to Chelsea Piers with a cargo bike with a motor on it. And most of it is white city bikes, people of all different abilities and ages who appreciate having a motor to be able to get around. So I think that's something that definitely needs to, more of a near-term fix, I would say that. And then also in line with making it more like an avenue, any other avenue and on the island would be the pedestrian crossing times, particularly in our area. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm in very good shape and I have to leave as soon as the light changes to be able to make it across at 55th Street or 54th Street, some of the really wide spots in our area. But yeah, I think in general, the park it's one of the best bike lanes in North America, but I ride it with my kids. I can't talk to my kids unless it's a red light, because if the cars are moving, I'm next to a highway and I can't even hear them. So I think turning it into more of a human street, where, you know, we can, not be right next to a highway with our wonderful Hudson River Park. And then finally, I'd say with congestion pricing starting, I have some concerns that, maybe we'll see more traffic there, of people trying to, not pay the toll by crossing it. So I think that should be factored in, to the study.
Excellent. And obviously, to the extent your comments have been already addressed, please try not to repeat. So if you wanted to say pass, that was a lot. Go ahead, Brett.
Okay. I'm just gonna give a little more padding to this is a neighborhood street now. Unlike the rest of the west side, we have a growing number of land use items on the west side of the highway. So it really needs to be integrated as part of Midtown West. I think we have to stop thinking of it as a waterfront highway that bypasses and think of it, this is now integrated into our grid. This is now 13th Avenue. No different than First Avenue.
It's 12th Avenue.
No, 12th Avenue, okay, 30, okay, it's 12, so it's an avenue. Well, maybe if we change it to 13th Avenue, they'll treat it differently. So there is that, I wanna, emphasize Charlie's point that this is an opportunity to rethink things, and this is, I think this is a place to introduce things that haven't really been implemented in a large extent in the city, so, a light rail, a motorized bike lane. The city DOT hasn't really been putting these in here, let's let the state show the city how it's done, because you're not tied to the city's regulations, so if we can do that and work with the city to incorporate that in with the existing mass transit systems and others, I think it would be a good thing. The other thing, part of the safety issue, the most anxiety provoking part of crossing the street, other than like what Charlie's saying, you gotta sprint across the street, is crossing the bike lane is actually really scary, because even though there's all those signs that say New York state law says you must yield to pedestrians, it doesn't happen very often. And so sometimes you just hold your breath and cross and hope nobody holds you, hits you with the bicycle. So I think we need to look at strategies for requiring bicycles to stop at strategic points, or if not everywhere, whether it's more traffic lights, or you come up with how to do that, so that way I'm not playing a game of chicken with the bicycles.
Yep. Here's that. Alan.
Two things. Number one, emergency vehicle access up and down the road. If you've ever been there on a crowded day, these ambulances and fire trucks sit there in traffic. So something needs to be done about that. That's an emergency. The other thing, in terms of crossing, we have 42nd Street, we have 14th Street, but we also have a very bad lock jam at 22nd Street, the intersection of Route 9, 11th Avenue, and the crossing of 22nd Street, people going into the park and going to Chelsea Piers. If you've ever been there, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, people have to meander around cars, people pushing children, bikers, people with dogs going through the park. That is accidents waiting to happen. So a lot of these things are down the road, but if you're going to do anything within the next year, you should really take a hard look at that intersection. Thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, I have a lot of crossed out here because I don't want to repeat.
Thank you.
But did you get Leslie's comment about the end of the highway, that sensitive area where, I mean, it's horrendous.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that gets.
Yeah,
into
it'll
the
be
point.
better. Here.
Then the other addition is, when these roads were created, I don't know how much attention they paid to the disabled. But I think that has to be looked at, because clearly, I don't think it has been. And the other thing is, in terms of visibility, nighttime, more attention has to be given to protecting pedestrians, disabled, everyone, bicyclists at nighttime. I think also what's been constructed is outdated. Otherwise, I think everybody mentioned.
Thank you, Tina. All right, I will pass. Anything I would have to say. Thank you very much. We do have a.
So just quickly to add to the idea of safety, maybe just identifying the hotspots for safety, for cyclists and pedestrians, really labeling along the study where those occur.
David,
I'll pass everything.
great. Liam,
One thing is, I think safety of folks who are getting off of the cruise ships and kind of crossing and trying to get in and out of vehicles along that eastern side of the highway, I think is really dangerous, and so some way to build in I don't know, some capacity for that to be more enclosed, that would be positive, and I'll pass some to this.
I think all the intersections are just horrible. They are very, very wide, you know, Chelsea Piers, you have multiple roads coming in at the same time, people don't know how to cross, when to cross. There are conflicts, I mean, very, very dangerous, all of the intersection. I think we should have many more connection with, so some street can go in and then it's open, and then some street don't go in. And then I don't think this is acceptable. I think all the streets should be able to go in. And then we should remove the median, which is a complete waste of space. And it's a highway feature. And that space could be better spent on other options, but also it wouldn't feel like a wall. So very, very important. Changing the green signal everywhere, the timing, too much green for the cars. And so these are the major items.
anyone else in the back? One second, Alan. Anyone else in the back have any other? Go ahead.
Dedicated mass transit right away. I know someone said trend before about like a BRT route, something north-south would be amazing, most of what's southbound from the middle of the island.
Wait, can you repeat this? So a dedicated what? I'm sorry.
Mass transit right away,
Yeah.
any type.
Some agencies I was thinking of is to get involved as parks and DEP, that was what was trying to be communicated earlier. And then also in Europe, when as we're building the system in Europe, they have these panels on the floor. If we can capture all the human power that's there, the bicycles, the walking, and utilize that energy into renewable light sources that go up to a light post, then we can get lighting that doesn't then require electricity. And then we will have a renewable source there, and then it will be cost effective and cheaper as well.
Cool. Thank you. Good.
At this moment, I'm just thinking about the notification in the future, given all the attraction to this area. We're gonna have a lot of drones flying around and the potential of someone getting hurt. That's something what we think about.
That is a good point, though, actually, of like the air taxis that are eventually coming and put that in of maybe yes, maybe no, but something to think about. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear, you're gonna be studying Route 9 and also the Greenway, the bike lane?
That's part of it.
Yeah, it's all.
Yes, that is part of this study.
Just want that on the record.
All right.
Can I make one quick point?
Sure.
One of the things that Christine brought it up is when you're crossing to get from east side across the highway, the lights are sort of timed for able person to walk through. But if there's an older person, it would take them much exactly.
We said that.
Yeah.
We got it.
And secondly I would propose, I don't know if part of the study could look into how the pedestrians cross. In other parts of the world, they actually have an overpass sometimes, and sometimes they have underpass. But if you do it well, they can work very well. But I don't think
That's actually a very good point, which we should write over or under, but should be looked at. Great. Thank you. I think all of my comments have been addressed, so I am not going to repeat everything that we just said, but I hope that you trust that I was taking decent notes and that we will incorporate that into a letter. So if there is a motion for said letter, I would love to hear it now. Motion, how about a second? So a letter to the DOT capturing all of the comments that we had and ideas for them to study, thinking both big and small, and we can send that to them. So all those in favor of that letter? Anyone opposed, present not eligible, we're abstaining, great, thank you so much. Ian, thank you so much for your time, for listening to us, for responding to our questions, they're not easy, we really appreciate it. And you will definitely be hearing from us soon.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to present to you guys. Have a great evening,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Bye
am
now.
gonna move along because we really do have, quite a lengthy, more matters on here that are pretty, take a while. So, number two, a presentation on the design and construction of porous pavements. I'm hoping we can limit this to, about 20 minutes, but if we can't do that, that's okay, but I'm just hoping, just timing wise. So, Sophia, is this your presentation?
Hi, good evening. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. So thank you for inviting me to speak on green infrastructure. I'm always happy to speak on that. I'm sharing my screen here. Good evening, I'm Sophia Zuberbuehler. I'm Assistant Commissioner for, you guys see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Assistant Commissioner for Sustainability and Urban Design at the New York City Department of Design and Construction. So I was asked to give an overview of porous pavement. There was an article in the New York Times in the, I believe it's called Street Wars. So this is more for awareness. So it'll be definitely less than 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go over why we need green infrastructure and what are these assets that we're going to look at today. So green infrastructure is a tool, and it's a tool that can help combine sewer overflows, help reduce that. It's also a tool to manage cloudburst management, as well as stormwater management during development.
What is cloudburst management?
Yes, I will go into it in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But no, that's good. It's a great question. I'll go into it. So green infrastructure, and green infrastructure includes many types of designs, and I will go briefly over what they are. I'll focus more on porous pavement, but we need it because New York City is, as you can see, and as you know, we live in Manhattan, it's very impervious. So what I did here is that I blew up Manhattan, so it's more applicable to where, for the community board that we're here today. But as you can see, it's very impervious. Those are the pink areas. So what green infrastructure does is that it starts creating a pervious area, right? Because it's usually covered by vegetation or some kind of material that will capture the stormwater runoff, right? So when it rains and it's pervious, it's going to find a way to infiltrate. Otherwise, it goes into a catch basin. And a catch basin are those grates that we see typically at the corner here in New York City. So I will go briefly over what are these events that will trigger a need for green infrastructure. So New York City is over 60% a CSO. And a CSO, as you can see in the images here, is when it's a combined sewer and stormwater pipes that go into, that either typically get treated when it doesn't rain, as opposed to going out into our rivers and creeks. But when it rains a lot, and as you have seen lately with all these high intensity rainfalls that we have, they are called cloudbursts. That's the more recent name for it. There is so much rain that happens that the water cannot get treated, and as you see in the diagram below, it gets mixed. So sewer and stormwater get mixed, that's why it's called combined, and it ends up in our rivers and creeks. So as you can imagine, the water quality becomes poor. So when we do green infrastructure, we try to prevent this stormwater from going into the pipes to prevent this event from happening, this combined event. So what is a cloudburst event? So this term came from Europe. This was in, I believe it was in Denmark. They had these, it's when, because of climate change, the sea levels are, the seas are getting warmer, and that's what we were having stronger hurricanes as well. So the warmer oceans make more evaporation, and that goes into the clouds, and it makes a heavier downpour. So as you might remember, last year there was a big cloudburst event, and what happened is that it's a very sudden heavy downpour. It's a lot of rain in a short period of time. And these images are from New York, right? So you get a lot of flooding, you damage property, your infrastructure is damaged, you pollute the waterways, because the previous image that I showed, that's definitely going to happen because there's so much water that our sewers cannot handle. So that's what a cloudburst event is. And another reason that we can use green infrastructure is to make sure that we don't pollute our waterways when we're doing construction. So this is a new stormwater rule. It applies a lot to our public agencies and to our contractors have to comply that when they're disrupting a certain amount of area, and I believe it's 20,000 square feet. It used to be an acre or more, but they've lowered the threshold because New York City is acknowledging that our water quality needs to get improved. So that green infrastructure can be used for that purpose as well. And I know I was asked to talk about porous pavement, but I don't want to, I just want to recognize that it is called green infrastructure because most of it can include vegetation. So for comparison, what I'm showing here is that green infrastructure practices with vegetation manage about 17 to 2,600 gallons of stormwater, right, per event. And here briefly are some images. You might have seen some of these. So you don't see a lot of these in Manhattan. A lot of them are in Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx. The reason for that is because those are the priority areas where our client, Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, they're in a consent order to build these. But you don't see a lot in Manhattan, even though we are a CSO borough. It's because we have the East River and the Hudson River are large enough that even when those events happen, the CSO, it's able to flush. So a lot of these have gone when there's smaller creeks. So as you can imagine, Newtown Creek, the Bronx River, Hutchinson River, those like tinier bodies of water, that's the priority to include these features to help out with water quality. So what I was asked to speak about today is about porous pavement. So porous pavement, what we call it is a green infrastructure practice without vegetation. But as you can see here, they manage a lot more water, at least double or triple the amount of stormwater is handled there. So this is the low-hanging fruit and the design of choice to help manage stormwater in New York City. So what is porous pavement? It is pavement, and I'll go into more detail, that allows water to infiltrate. So rain falls on it, and instead of sitting on top like it would on a typical concrete sidewalk or asphalt, it is made of a porous material that then goes into a reservoir base. And these designs are part of the DEP standards, and here's another photo of what they look like. And these are all available online at the DEP website. So before we put porous pavement on the street, there's things to consider. So in addition to doing geotechnical investigations, because we have to make sure that the ground underneath will be able to infiltrate water, we look at considerations of sidewalks, where are the driveways, where are there bike lanes. So in collaboration with DOT, which owns the street, there's a set of design criteria that is considered before we say this is a good location for porous pavement. So here we see a picture of the precast porous concrete panels, which we call PPCP. This is the standard that's going to be used around New York City. And as I mentioned before, we have a lot of area-wide projects, mostly in Brooklyn right now, but this is also going to be used maybe in Manhattan. I don't know if you'll see too much of this because there are a lot of challenges with siting in Manhattan, particularly because of utilities, as well as, what the geotechnical investigations come back. But a system typically includes these panels. You have some geotechnical fabric that helps make it a little stronger, the reservoir base. You have open graded stone, which is where the water will sit as a reservoir. And then you have these PPCP on top. And some images of what this looks like when it's in construction. What we're seeing here is anytime we put this PPCP, you end up building a new curb as well as a header. So a curb is to give you the reveal, which is where water usually runs along the gutter, and the curb is to hold it in place. You see here are the drainage cells that are part of this reservoir base. And the good thing about the PPCP is that they're precast, so construction goes quicker, and they have lifting points. So the construction of this porous pavement, of this type of porous pavement, will go faster. And to go a little bit, not too much into the nitty-gritty of the details, is there's two designs. There's a 4-foot wide panel and a 2-foot wide panel. Ideally, you want to make it as wide as possible, which is the 4-foot wide, to manage as much stormwater as you can. And sometimes we even include stone columns, which will help draw water through maybe an impervious layer through the geotech findings and pull it into the ground. And what we see here, let's see if I can play the little video. I hope you were able to see that, but typically if we were pouring water on an asphalt street, asphalt road, the water would start accumulating and start running down the gutter. Here, once it was poured on top of the PPCP, it just disappears and it infiltrates into the ground. And then a couple, and here are a couple more images of the PPCP constructed on our project in Brooklyn. And then, so precast porous concrete panels are one type of porous pavement. Along with DP, we also have we did a pilot for porous asphalt in Queens. It was only a pilot as a way to see how it did. It didn't do as well as the precast porous concrete panels. They're still working on some mixes, so there was some rutting. So right now, the porous pavement that we're using are these, the PPCP. And that's it. I just give you a very quick intro into what these panels look like, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna, combine for time's sake, questions and comments. I assume we mostly have questions, but to the extent you have comments, feel free to also make them now just for efficiency's sake. Go ahead.
How nerdy can we get? Because it's very, very interesting. So you're showing these panels and the images you're showing, they're going in the road, but like near, just along the edge.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not the whole street, it's just the edge.
It's just the edge, because what we want to capture is, so typically roads are crowned, right? And rainwater, stormwater runs along the curb. So it's typically half of a parking lane. And with the pilot studies that we did, it's the best place to put it. Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to keep this more Manhattan centric since we're in Manhattan. If we're looking to do something like this in Manhattan, so a couple of things that are really nice about this, I guess, is that, even in the areas where water collects along the edge, it'll drain, because we have a lot of these. But what always happens is, like, DOT comes and does a big street project, and that's when Con Ed knows this is where we're gonna dig up the street, do a utility thing underneath. How does that work with Con Ed now and other utilities and other people who are digging up the streets?
Yeah. I was in a meeting this afternoon talking about Con Ed. So when we do the design, so I'll speak about it. So there's a couple reasons of why you would put PPCP. So I also oversee the green infrastructure portfolio. So in our projects, they're large. We'll cover over 800 acres. So in those projects, what we do, we have something called an alignment meeting, where we invite all the utilities to come. They look where we're going to design, and we have conversations. So ideally, we want to have them move their asset so that we can put this new capital asset on top. So this would, so we're not lying parallel to it. So that's what usually happens. So National Grid will come and relocate, Con Ed will come and relocate, so they're not directly under our asset. We also work with DP, even though they're our client, we have to be a certain distance from a sewer and water main, right? Because we can't be over another capital asset, so we don't disrupt it. Because it is precast, if there are some perpendicular connections, and sometimes they are, we're able to sleeve water and electricity that run perpendicular underneath it. But this is so shallow that we usually don't hit it. But there might be applications where it is going to be a little deeper, and we're able to do some sleeving of perpendicular utilities.
All right, two other questions. We have a lot of instances where we're getting our sidewalks extended, which basically means that they paint the street and call it a sidewalk. So if these were to go onto these avenues where these sidewalks are being extended for a lot of pedestrian safety purposes, is this gonna go basically this pervious cover would be in our pedestrian areas, and so I guess I can.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying. Yeah, I was seeing that in Manhattan, they are extending sidewalks. So as of now, DP will not allow these in the sidewalk. It will only be on the road. So it'll be along the gutter. So I don't think this would be a tool as part of an extension.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
what
maybe we can, but
What,
that's something
what I
that we
would
could address.
really,
Yeah.
really like to see happen,
Yeah.
since this sounds like a really good opportunity to
Yeah.
get some capital funding. We would like, I won't speak for everybody, but I would really like to see these painted streets become actual sidewalks, extended sidewalks. It would be fantastic to actually extend the sidewalks as a real sidewalk. So then you can put this along the street, because it sounds like you can't put this porous concrete in till you have an actual sidewalk to butt up against, so. I would love for
And
you to
I
make
will
that a
add,
priority.
just to say that
I
we
think
have
I need to
received,
explain.
yeah, just so you know, so again, we have these extended sidewalks in our district that are where, you know, it is for pedestrians to walk, but it just literally just painted on the street. And part of the reasons that we've heard that they can't just extend the sidewalk is actually because of the drainage issues. So this is actually the perfect
win-win
potentially solution to that problem for us. And so a question would be, right, who do we direct this request to? To you?
Yeah, that's a DOT question. DOT is one of our clients as well. Definitely, I know what you're talking about. I know that when we do plaza projects at DDC, they'll usually paint to kind of test out how it works. You know, moving a curb, I know impacts geometry, but when you meet with DOT, you can ask them and say, hey, we learned about this PPCP. Is that something that could be part of the toolbox? That's what I could say about that, I think.
Okay, and then the last question that I have is, there are some cities like Washington DC that have actually separated their stormwater from their sewage. Is that something that New York City would actually be looking to do for the cleanliness of our waterways here?
I mean, I think with this new unified stormwater rule that's on the path towards water quality, I don't think there's a big capital program to separate. Some of New York is also separate. That's called an MS4 area, separate storms sewers. But
I think it's like 40% separate here.
Yeah, so it's like about 60, so the rest is like MS4 and a little bit is direct. I have not heard that of a goal of separating it, but green infrastructure is there to help mitigate those combined sewer events. So the more porous that we can make the city, the less those events will happen.
We have another question? Just one second. Nah.
Hey, so I know one of the ongoing challenges with any GI project is maintenance. Is this something a DSNY mechanical group can maintain?
Yeah, so the maintenance conversation is ongoing. The latest developments are that the Department of Sanitation is going to partner, and they're gearing up their toolbox to be able to. The way that these panels are cleaned is typically through regenerative air, pushes air, then sucks up the silt that's there. And from the pilots, it typically needs to be done like twice a year. That's about the maintenance for it. So yeah, that's underway. They're coordinating that, DP and DOT and sanitation.
And what's the lifespan compared to regular concrete?
The lifespan, I believe it's like 20 years. As long as it's maintained. It's, we have our pilot in the Bronx. I think it's been about 6 years for now, but I believe the useful life of the panels is about 20 years.
Darren, and then Tina, and then we're gonna move on. Go ahead.
Just a very quick question. I mean, if you talk about combined sewer lines, and from what I believe, there was a project when David Burney used to be the commissioner at DDC, and came up in a conversation, and I think he implemented a project, but every time there was sort of new piece of sewer lines being changed, right next to it, they will actually install the separate line. So incrementally over a number of years, you would actually achieve that goal, because there's you're absolutely right. Is that project still on, or it's been sort of abandoned?
I haven't heard of it. I can't speak on that. You said with which commissioner you heard that from? I didn't hear.
Oh, David Burney, he used to be the commissioner. Until,
oh yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
2015.
15 years ago. Yeah. No, I haven't heard of that project. I can't speak to that.
I'm sorry, the word maintenance was just said by somebody, and I'm just sort of curious between the old pavement and the new pavement, does it require different maintenance? And if
Yes.
so, that's interesting. So, wow, so you can, so if a certain area has this porous pavement, you have a whole separate company who comes and does the maintenance?
So I believe the conversations is not, it will not be a separate company. So Department of Sanitation is in conversations with DOT and DEP to build up a certain fleet of like trucks that are different, right? That they have this regenerative air tool attached to them so they can do that maintenance on the panels.
Okay.
But that's in development.
Christine, take it over.
So there is a project of DOT to install pedestrian ramps. And every time they install a pedestrian ramp, you know what a pedestrian ramp is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for the handicapped. And every time they install that, at the bottom, water starts to pool. And we have a lot of that.
You have ponding after the installation of the.
Yes,
of
all the
the
time,
bed
all
ramps?
the
Okay.
time. So
Mhm.
the best thing we do is they send back and have somebody put some asphalt, which is like little bumpy, and then the water goes somewhere else. So my question is, would that be a good idea to install those?
Oh, the panels at the corner, yeah,
Yeah, and so
I
at
think
every corner, we would have that, which would prevent, as they are rolling out the pedestrian ramp at the
Right.
same time.
I feel like I had heard of that, maybe I feel like they tested it out. The thing is, you have to make sure that the ground underneath is going to be able to absorb that, so that's going to require geotechnical testing at every corner, you know, and those are kind of pricey, so I'm not sure, I see what you're saying, and I know that we're talking about it, I'm not sure how
But
much.
the installation of the ramp is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Because they have to cut the whole sidewalk, etc. So this would just be one piece additional to that. And then there are other locations in the city where we have chronic bonding along. How do we ask for this feature to be installed in those locations?
I think it sounds like your community board's in conversation with DOT, you can ask them that, say, hey, we learned about this PPCP, can it be considered? I know that there's a platform, I don't know where it is right now, where you can report flooding and ponding, because flooding is a big issue. So there is a database where you can make those reports, I think even with 311. And I believe that's something that maybe DOT will look at and maybe consider seeing if the panel, you know, if it's worth looking at panels there. Maybe I could follow up to see if I find the link.
I mean, what are the projects right now that DOT has, which involve this panel?
DOT. So right now, the projects that I've been working on that include the panels are for DEP, for CSO reduction, and for cloudburst management. The other reason that I mentioned that these panels can be used for, it's when there's a project from DOT, let's say, that has a certain disturbance, then they have to work with the designers to see how they can mitigate the disturbance to the area. And this is the low-hanging fruit of the toolbox. But before they can put that, they have to go through the checklist of, can we put it here? Does the ground accept it?
No, I understand that, but it doesn't look like there is a systematic approach by DOT to take advantage of the tool.
No.
They know it exists. Yeah, I mean, they know it exists. I'm not sure how they approach it in their toolbox. I don't work for DOT, part of the PedRamp group, but I can find out with my colleagues.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great, because we would like to have some precedent to point to DOT and say, you have done it here, you have done it there.
Right.
Why don't you do it for us, right?
Right. Yeah, I can ask my colleague who works in the PedRamp unit to see how they consider that as part of the toolbox. Sure, I can ask and see what's the best way for the community board.
Okay, so, wait a minute, sorry, Pete, do you have something real quick?
I was just thinking about, how is Eighth Avenue, for example, that has the tunnels below? How's that gonna interact your projects? Project, in mind. I mean, because you have very shallow distance.
Yeah, so we cannot, so one cannot put PCP everywhere. Like I said, there's a lot of guidelines that you have to meet, certain offsets. With MTA, you cannot be over an MTA structure. You have to be a certain distance.
That's
So,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
and the other question is, how salts, when you're doing the snow plowing and you're setting out the salts, how does the salts interact
Yeah,
with this?
so this is in its infancy still, but those are the conversations that are happening with sanitation. That's where that's what they're at the table talking about maintenance, because there's going to have to be, certain signs that say this will not be a salted area, it won't be a sanded area. But it has been shown that where there is this porous material, less snow and ice accumulate because it usually infiltrates through. But yeah, that's part of the maintenance conversations that are happening.
I'm gonna move on to I'm sorry, we just have a really significant conversation presentation coming up. I apologize. I'm trying to move us forward. Opening up to members of the public. Leslie, I see your hand up. You have something fast. And anybody else, obviously, who's a member of the public who has a question or comment?
Hi, guys. Did you call on me? I was getting pulled over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I have a question about outside the scope of DOT. When you're talking about porous pavement and permeable pavement in, say, school construction or, parks, that type of thing, school playgrounds. If you look at the map, I think in our district, we only have 2 or 3 where this porous pavement is installed. And I believe it's all in a school playground.
Mhm.
And I know it's not the exact thing you're talking about with streets and streetscapes where heavy loads go on. But I just want to know if you work kind of finding or identifying those opportunities as well.
With schools, yeah, I believe some of those green infrastructure in schools was part of an earlier program with DEP that they, on the Trust for Public Land, that's called on-site stormwater management. At DDC, we don't do any on-site at the moment. The infrastructure is usually in the right of way. But I mean, I think DP is very good at collaborations if there is an on-site project. Well, and the thing is that now with the new unified stormwater rule, people have to put green infrastructure projects, applicants, developers. So that it's like, naturally, you're going to have that conversation because you're going to have to do it as a compliance. Yeah.
Okay, that was really my only question because I think that transportation, it was always also private, but you just hit on that. But I think transportation's probably going to write a letter or something. So I think that's going to cover what at least the environmental portion of this would be.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. So turning back to us, what do we want? Do we want to bring DOT in first before we write them? It sounds like we need to write a letter to DOT again, but maybe we ask for more information on this, provide some of the information we have, some of the ideas we
But
have.
also say, you're right, say the idea we have, what are the
Yeah.
problems that this thing could
Right,
address?
exactly.
And how do they propose, follow up on that, maybe do a pilot, maybe
Yeah.
do a,
Okay. So a letter to DOT is on the table for, what Kristen just said, I'm not gonna repeat it. But obviously I'll also incorporate some of the comments and questions that we have here, and some of the ideas of where this could go, extended sidewalks, ramps, where there's ponding, significant ponding in our area, school playgrounds, Leslie. So, do we have a motion for that?
No.
Yeah, very reliable, thank you. Is there a second? Excellent, all those in favor of a letter to DOT? Thank you, and Sophia, to the extent you're able to just keep us in the loop and what you learn from DOT would be very, very helpful for us in us crafting our asks to them. But thank you so much for the presentation, that we learned a lot, that's been very interesting to us. So we're really, really grateful, thank you.
Have a good evening, bye.
You too, thank you so much. Okay, and now to what some have billed as the main event this evening, not all, but we do have our actual statutory obligations though to consider the ULURP for the Western Rail Yards modification. I know that there are folks in the room who are potentially here to present on this. I'm sure there are those online, so if you are online here to present, please, Janine's gonna move you over. Andy, is this you? This is your presentation?
Yeah, this is Andrew
Great,
Rosen.
okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, this is mine. Hey, you guys were here for someone else. Great, thanks so much. Excellent. Yes, we can hear you. I also do see 30 or so attendees online. I am just curious for my own sake. I know there's a lot of community interest, but I also know you guys typically bring a big group. About how many people do you have online with us this evening, Andy?
I'm not sure exactly the number, but hopefully it's a big chunk of that.
Yeah, if you're online and you're have a connection to Related or to this application, do you mind just raising your hand if you're with us this evening, just to get a sense of, for timing's sake, how many community members we might have here who might want to speak. So if you're connected to Related or to the application, just raise your hand, please.
Oh, you want to speak, right? Is it with the response?
No, these are people who are connected, who are not here to speak, or just here. Okay, all right, so we have about 20 or so community members with us who might want to speak on this, but that's helpful. Okay, everyone put their hands down. Thank you so much. Andy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having us here. And we were at the Land Use Committee last week, and I think helpful to go over some of the transportation specific topics related to our proposal for Hudson Yards West. I'm going to share a screen with a presentation here. I just want to confirm that everyone can see that, and then I'll get started. Can folks see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm joined here by Chris Gordon from WIN. And Chi Chan, who is with AKRF, our environmental consultant. He's our transportation consultant at AKRF. So he'll go through some pieces of this commentary, and I just have a few slides to introduce the project for folks who aren't aware of it or want a little more detail. It's nothing to the extent of what we've shown in great detail to the Land Use Committee, but just a couple slides of overview about the project, and then some of the transit specific and transportation specific elements. So I'll go through that. First off, there's an image here looking from Hudson River east into Hudson Yards. This is between 30th Street and 33rd Street on the west side, and you can see our proposed hotel tower, a residential building, and an office building, all flanking a 5.6 acre park in the center. So I'll flip to the next page. I'm moving too fast. Sorry. As a transportation matter, we've done analysis. You folks are probably very much aware of all the transportation options that are around the site, including Moynihan Train Hall a couple blocks away, the 7 train, and the ferries over on 39th Street and the river. So, there are a number of different ways to get here. We've analyzed it. Approximately 75% of people coming to Hudson Yards West are expected to take public transit of some form or another. Looking at the proposed project and the alternative scenario that are in the ULURP application that we have filed with City Planning, on the left side of this page is the proposed project. Again, 3 buildings, a hotel and resort with gaming at the base, an office building on 11th Avenue and 30th Street, and then a residential building, 1,500 apartments on the southwest corner of the project. That's all within the existing total zoning density that's been contemplated for the site already, just shifting some of the footprints of the buildings in different locations. There's an alternative scenario in our proposal that looks at this in the event that the gaming license is not awarded, just because of the sequencing of the timing. We'll go through this ULURP process now, and then a separate state process to determine licensing for gaming later next year. So there's an alternative scenario that has a similar footprint to the proposed project. Here's an image of the park in the center. This is, we think, a very significant benefit to the neighborhood, connecting from the eastern portion of Hudson Yards out to the High Line and then out across the sidewalk to Hudson River Park. What you'll notice in this diagram is that there are no roads in the center of this plan. That's a change from what we had previously, and we'll go into how and why we think that makes sense over the next few slides. Just to compare the two projects on a plan level view and incorporate them as compared to the existing conditions on the east side of 11th Avenue. Here we have 33rd Street, which becomes a much more important component of this project than that has been contemplated previously, and then 30th Street on the south side, which is another access point. You see that the residential building on the west, office building on the east, and then the resort tower here on the north side, closer to the Javits Center. In the alternative scenario, that podium would have 3 different towers on it, or up to 3 different towers on it. Could be office, hotel, and residential. Zooming in a little bit on that site plan, on 11th Avenue, I think important to note, there are new pedestrian crosswalks at the equivalent of 32nd Street, 31st Street, to really make 11th Avenue a much more pedestrian-friendly space than it is today. Adding traffic signals at those locations, we think, is an important thing for that pedestrian cross path between the Eastern Yard, where there's a sort of hardscape public plaza, and this Hudson Green on the west, which has much more landscape than the east. And then we do have a 5-foot setback from the property line, adding a little space for pedestrian access. In terms of 33rd Street, there is a redesign of this and a change in the level. I'll go into a little detail about that. But there is accessible access to the High Line at the north side. There are much better frontages in terms of comparing to the existing conditions, and I'll just show you a couple of images of that I think that will be helpful. So this is an existing condition on 33rd Street where there are police vehicles parked. This street has been in this condition basically at least for the last 5 years, as far as I can remember back. This street's been closed to passenger traffic, and then our proposal here on 33rd Street is to take what's shown on the north, on the upper level of this diagram, which is a gradual slope from 11th Avenue down to 12th Avenue and out to the highway, and change the grade level to match 11th Avenue all the way across to a few feet shy of the High Line, at which point there'll be a pedestrian connection over to the High Line. So what this allows for is a drop off on both sides of the street, both our property on the south side and the north side, which has the state marshalling yard property that the Javits Center uses. And when that gets developed, this would allow for access from both sides for both pedestrians and vehicles to enter those sites, as opposed to being blocked by the trains that are currently at the elevation below this on the existing condition. So that change, there's another image here. This is what that will look like with a turnaround on the western portion of 33rd Street. But this brings all that traffic and the drop off and all those cars that would come to a place where they have some room to queue. Another diagram here that shows the elevator and stair that we're proposing that will connect the 33rd Street extension out to the High Line and then down to an access point out to 12th Avenue. There's a small portion of the street here that remains active as really a service entrance, both for the Long Island Railroad to the south. There's an access point to the train yard, and on the north side to the marshalling yard, the state property to the north. So a little confusing to see in plan view, so we try to do a few diagrams just to illustrate how this all works, and we're happy as we go through questions later to talk about this in more detail. I want to speak for a second as to our environmental impact and the statement that we've drafted for review as part of the ULURP certification, and just sort of what we're comparing to. I think that's an important component of this. On the left side, you see the buildings that were contemplated in the EIS that was completed in 2009. And you see 3 red buildings here. The first buildings here in white are the ones that we had assumed would be developed by our build year in the EIS, and the red buildings we did not anticipate would be completed as part of a no action condition. So you see that in the center here with those buildings not constructed. So what that does, it's really a more conservative approach to the environmental review because it assumes that, that development would not happen at the same timeline as the proposed action. And that results in a slightly increased impact from an environmental perspective than it would against a full build of the existing zoning at some point farther into the future. So that's what it looks like. Our proposed action does contemplate, all the buildings being constructed on the site to fill it out and in the configuration that I showed earlier. So then the next page, I think, just illustrates some of the things that I think we need to speak with this committee about a little more detail, really around queuing and where different elements are located, including, drop off for cars and taxis on the north side, and the reservoir is available for that. There was a question about, bus staging and access. We do have a location identified on 11th Avenue for a drop off for buses. And then a separate zone on 12th Avenue that could be used for bus staging to the extent that's necessary. Now, I will say, and Chris Gordon can jump in here from WIN's perspective, as we've researched this and evaluated it, we are taking a lot of assumptions from DOT that they're using throughout the city for some of these gaming applications. WIN's experience in some of their other locations has actually very little bus traffic, but obviously we have to consider it. So I think in Boston, they have one bus on average a day, right? So, just for context of, planning, that's an important point. So I think with this, I'll turn it over to Chi Chan from AKRF. He can go into a little more detail of some of the technical items about this design and our environmental study.
Thank you, Andy. Next slide. And just to continue on the topic of curbside queuing for vehicles, which includes taxis, Ubers, and private automobiles, we counted up about 57 curbside spaces adjacent to the project site on 33rd Street and along 11th Avenue, 42 and 15 respectively. And there's some calculation of what the expected dwell time of each vehicle and compared to what we projected in the EIS and see if there will be adequate space to accommodate everyone. So as Andy said, our estimates have been conservative based on the directions we got from DOT, but nonetheless, given the amount of frontage along 33rd and along 11th Avenue, we concluded there would be enough curb space to accommodate the peak demand that we projected for the resort, which would occur on the Saturday evening. So in total, you can see those numbers there. The stats saying that the projection is about 1,100 vehicles total, and the curb space with the turnovers expected could accommodate close to 1,400 vehicles during an hour. Okay. All right. So for the next few slides, I'm just going to go over some of the highlights of what we did in the EIS with respect to transportation and what we concluded. Again, just to reiterate again, in addition to assuming a smaller no action build out of the project site and therefore a larger project increment, the DIS analysis also incorporated other conservative assumptions required by DOT. One of these is assuming a set of unified trip rates for the gaming use that they are requiring for all gaming facility applications that are currently under review. Whereas projections from WIN, based on their operating experience, were showing much lower numbers and in the realm of 30 to 40% lower. But nonetheless, based on these conservative trip estimates, we ended up with quite a large traffic study area shown here comprising of about 75 intersections. And because of the gaming use, we studied 6 peak hours, including the 4 typical daytime, weekday, and Saturday peak hours, as well as the weekday and Saturday evening peak hours. Next slide, please. Okay. So to analyze future conditions, just want to go back to what Andy mentioned about the no action project that could go up here. In addition to what was assumed for the project site, we also incorporated some 30 other developments and infrastructure projects within an approximate half-mile distance from the project site, including Stark Lehigh and Fulton and Elliott Chelsea houses, which are a few blocks to the south, numerous other residential and commercial projects in the area, and ridership growth anticipated for Penn Station and the Port Authority by our analysis year of 2031. Accordingly, with all these developments and new trips coming to the area, future conditions are expected to worsen even without the proposed project. As you may know, secret procedures identify the potential for traffic impacts based on the projected increase in vehicle delays. Sometimes an increase of as little as 3 seconds over the no action condition can constitute a significant adverse impact under seeker. Accordingly, the DEIS analysis that we prepared concluded that the potential for impacts may occur at up to 46 intersections for the proposed project, and for the alternative scenario, at up to 45 intersections. So it's a pretty comparable overall. We looked at ways of addressing these impacts and found that more than half could be mitigated with signal timing adjustments, and we are continuing to work with DOT to make any necessary refinements between draft and final. Thanks. Now, for pedestrians, we also have a pretty large study area, including 170 sidewalk, corner, and crosswalk locations for the same 6 peak hours. Applying the same conservative assumptions, we concluded potential impacts at up to 33 locations for the proposed project and up to 45 locations for the alternative scenario. Some of these impacts could be mitigated with signal timing changes, crosswalk width adjustments, corner extensions, and enhancing sidewalk clear widths. Similar to traffic, we are continuing to work with DOT on any appropriate refinements that we may make for the FEIS. And finally, for transit, we study ridership on the M23 and M34 SBS bus routes, the number 17 subway, and locations within the 34th Street Hudson Yards Station. We concluded potential impacts on the M23 and M34 SBS bus routes, and a couple of stairs and 4 escalators at the 34th Street Hudson Yards Station. Studying potential mitigation measures, we identify possibly increasing bus service, which DMTA routinely does anyway in response to changes in ridership levels, potentially making wayfinding improvements and adjusting escalator directionality to optimize processing capacities at the 34th Street Hudson Yards Station. We're also coordinating with the MTA on addressing the project's elimination of the current turnaround on 33rd Street for the M34 SBS. I think that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer questions.
And Ian, can I just add a couple things from the wind side of things?
Yep.
I'm Chris Gordon, I'm the president of Wind Development, and first of all, thank you for having us here tonight. I'll be very brief because I know you've had a long night, but I just want to emphasize that wind takes transportation very seriously. We have to because of the nature of our properties. All we do is develop luxury resorts around the world, so we think a lot about how they operate, how our customers experience them. We have transportation directors at all of our facilities. We monitor the traffic. We monitor the outcome. We watch exactly how the traffic works. We look at mode splits constantly. In various parts of the world, we operate buses, operate boats, operate limos. We work with the train authorities everywhere we are. So we take this really seriously. So in addition to what we have to do as part of the regulatory process, we also do a lot of work because we want to. Because our customers don't want to be, inconvenienced. The neighborhoods we work in don't want to be inconvenienced. And people really want to make sure the transportation works. So again, thank you for having us, and we're happy to answer any questions tonight, but we also are happy to meet with you anytime you want to try to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. And obviously, we have all of your materials as well, which we've taken the time to go through to the extent we could. I would like to do this, in our formal process that we typically follow, like we did for the first presentation. So we're going to start with questions from committee members. Then we're going to open it up to the public for their questions and comments, and then we are going to discuss your proposal as a committee. But this is now the time to ask your questions and get any of your concerns answered before we talk amongst ourselves. So feel free to ask away. Go ahead, Brett.
I'll just start with a comment and then a question. First comment is just the volume of vehicles and coming to the curbside, I think provides a really, really good argument why this is not a positive for the neighborhood, the whole resort casino proposal. So, so thank you for those numbers. The question I have, so when we were looking at the Hudson Yards East, in reviewing that, there was a lot of open space, and open space, of course, is part of the calculation for what's a requirement to allow for all the developable air, all the FAR, the floor area in the projects, which makes a lot of money for related. So we were, I think, very surprised when we learned that there was a road that was designed to go through the Hudson Yards East, which of course is still counted as public open space. So related gets the benefit from the floor area that they developed, even though there's a road that's counted as open space. Is there, so I just want to make sure we're on record now. Are you planning to drop a road anywhere in the public open space in Hudson Yards West? Or are we gonna be surprised later when we find another one coming in?
So we're not, and you know, we did get this question tied to, you know, fire department access and those kinds of things from a, you know, practical perspective. We have spoken to the fire department. They do understand the access points from 11th Avenue, from 33rd Street, from 12th Avenue, and did not anticipate to put a road in the center here to accommodate that based on this plan. So we are not planning a road. We're not planning a road in the center here.
Okay, the reason why the road went in there, I don't think was for fire access. That was because people who were staying at the hotel couldn't walk 100 feet to the curb to get an Uber. They had to get door-to-door service. So it's not about fire and emergency. We're assuming you're covering that. Just want to make sure that we're on record. You are not putting a pickup and drop off anywhere on the park side and the open space for the public on your site, because I want to take a card table sometimes in the roadway and say it's public open space and playing cards here on your Hudson Yards road because it's open space.
We're not intending to put a road here. This is meant to be green space. Actually, quite different from a design perspective than the Eastern Yard. It's much more green space, deeper soil depth, ability to put large scale trees to help you know, mitigate wind and those kinds of things.
Sorry to push it. I don't want to hear you're not intending
You're
to.
committed.
Are you're not putting a road on here, correct?
It is not part of the plan. No, we are not putting a road.
It's not, you're not putting a road there, yes, no?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you. You're on YouTube now, it's recorded.
And I do have just a couple more things that I just want to say that I realized, but just in terms of parameters of our questions and comments, those were all on topic and excellent. I just want to make sure we all recognize that obviously land use has already addressed the land use components of this plan, and we are not here to opine on, you know, the housing elements or the casino elements. We are not here to even opine on necessarily the use of, you know, whether we're for a casino, against it, you know, we are literally just, we're going to limit this conversation to the transportation effects of these proposals. I just want to make sure that's clear. And two, I would like to remind our presenters, and as Brett is bringing up, you know, part of the wonderful thing about this hybrid method that we've adopted is that this is on YouTube Live and will be recorded and will be there forever. So we really do, when we ask questions, you know, we do expect to be able to the ability to, you know, to the extent you are able to answer, you know, we are hoping that you are truthful, and we expect, you know, we'll be holding you accountable for anything that turn out not to be true because they're here recorded. So with that being said, I'm gonna go Max and back.
So looking at your application map for 33rd Street, and the prospect of 27-foot retaining wall is quite scary. I know that 33rd Street right now is closed off by PD, but that's a policy thing. It's not an infrastructure thing. Building a new 27-foot wall in the current grid is really terrifying, and I don't think the access to the High Line is enough of a reason to justify it. It almost appears like it's a private street now. I know it's not the case, it's a public easement on it. But 33rd Street with the turnabout feels very uncomfortable from the public point of view. It looks like it's a private drop off, whatever that building is.
Could you hear the question?
I hear the question. I think, just as we've looked at this from a planning perspective, we welcome, your input as to how to make this better. The constraint of providing access to both sides from both a pedestrian and a vehicular access point off of 33rd is a real opportunity. I mean, this remains as a city street in our proposal here. This is still DOT street, and we'll have to make sure that works from their perspective. Which indication so far is that the earth fill that's here is something that they prefer. But what this enables is us not having a road on the south side, right? So it is, the trade-off of raising it higher, which we think is better for pedestrians, better for cars, also allows us to be able to remove the roads from the south side in the park and create a better pedestrian experience on the south side.
So I just have a follow up to that. Will there be, if a pedestrian wants to go up 33rd Street and they want to go on to 12th Avenue, is there an accessible way for them to go down there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's an elevator, there's a stair, there's access to the High Line, all at the edge of 33rd Street here.
Okay, great. Tina.
I'm sorry if you answered this already, but Moynihan Station, I'm really concerned about. How much have you done the impact study already and dealt with the congestion flow of personnel? Is it gonna, I doubt it would, but would it affect any of the trains within that station? No, it won't. Okay, so trains I don't have to worry about, just pedestrian congestion.
Yeah, we did see
And
that your materials did include, obviously, consideration of a significant number of people now walking from Moynihan over to your hotel and casino. And so if you could just speak to that. We also, as you mentioned, we saw your mitigation plans for additional travelers on the 7 line coming up and down, and you guys were talking about expanding stairways and escalators. But if you could just speak to those two components, that'd be great.
Chief, maybe you can handle that one.
Yeah, I would say certainly the Hudson Yard 34th Street station is the closest station to the site, and we expect folks who are taking subways, most of whom would travel to the site using that station, and in coordinating with the MTA early on, they agree with that assumption. But obviously, those traveling by rail would be walking to and from Moynihan and Penn Station. And our study accounted for that ridership that would be coming in that desire line, and also incorporated the growth that's expected at Penn Station. So that's all built in, and we did identify impacts mostly close to the site, but certainly at some other stations that we attempt to mitigate with some of the improvements that I spoke about.
Well, specifically, I mean, what would you be doing to mitigate, the traffic that's pedestrian foot traffic that's outside of the site, but now heading from Moynihan? Can you speak to that?
Well, depending on what it is and where it is. So if it's a crosswalk situation, it could be widening it to what DOT would permit. Sometimes tweaking signals, allowing more crossing time would help the situation. If it's a corner congestion where people waiting to cross the street, there's not enough capacity there, we consider corner extensions. That's actually considered on 11th Avenue at the site when you have everybody kind of funneling towards the site and concentration of pedestrian traffic. So even though the project itself has not assumed a corner extension there, we are proposing as mitigation corner extensions at 33rd and 11th Avenue. Sidewalks is a little bit more difficult because you have a lot of street furniture to deal with. Where possible, we identify certain ways to increase the clear width to allow more capacity. So those are the options that we had summarized.
David.
Just a quick question, in case I missed it. There's a lot of traffic vehicles that are parked on 33rd Street. Are you planning to put an underground facility for them to park? Where do you plan to park these traffic vehicles? Because in the past, we've had problems with parking in parks. So we want them in that location.
You mean NYPD?
Yeah, the traffic, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So what's the story, where are they gonna go? 'Cause maybe I missed it in the plan.
Yeah, we have not identified a location to relocate the NYPD vehicles. That's
Well,
something to talk about.
Well, that's major because otherwise you're gonna be parking
Yeah.
in the park. They were parking on Hudson Boulevard.
No, they park on 33rd Street, on the private access.
Yeah, they would, they will block up your private access.
No, but they were parking also.
No, I
Yeah, they're
know.
allowed to. Yeah, it's public.
Yeah, but where they, but
I
now
know,
they're
I
talking
know.
about, so what, so we got,
I think we heard it.
okay,
We
so.
got it. That's a good point.
Yeah, very well.
It's a good point, a very good point.
All right, brother.
Thank you guys for the presentation. One thing that I haven't seen in any of the renderings for this chunk of land is a bike lane. We have a protected bike lane in our community board on 11th Avenue from 57th Street down to 34th Street. And this committee's on record asking it to be extended all the way until the terminus of 11th Avenue to the south. So I would love to see a bike lane included in that plan. Is there any plan for that on the avenue?
I mean, that's something we can look at for sure.
Great. It certainly is, was a little bit alarming to hear that on the 11th Avenue side. Yeah, I was asked that as well, Christine. It was a little alarming to hear the 1,400 vehicle per hour, but I suppose if it's in a floating parking lane with a bike lane, that would mitigate it a little bit. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was bike parking. Is there any plan for bicycle parking if there's a middle school there, and as well as presumably a percentage of casino guests would want to arrive by bike?
In the bike share.
Yes, there is bike parking in the plan.
Like where?
Do you know where specifically?
I don't know.
In
I don't think we've identified an exact location yet, but there are requirements to include it and in each building, and as well, I believe, as part of the park.
And to give you an example, the resort we just opened in Boston, we dealt with the same issue. We built bike lanes on Broadway, which is the road in front of us. We built a bike lane behind the building. We built bike storage in the garage. We built bike storage out front, and we did the bike for rent system. So we haven't got to that level of detail, but we totally agree. And we've actually got a lot of our employees riding bikes now. So the employee bike parking area is incredibly full. So, we haven't got down to the details on that, but you're right. It needs to have a bike mode accommodation.
Yeah,
Well,
and I'm
good to hear.
personally impacted by that. I'm one of the people who bike to work here at Hudson Yards most days. So I'm with
Well, that's great. That's good to hear, particularly given the proximity to the busiest bike lane in North America across the street on the Hudson River Greenway. And the final thing I wanted to talk about is just connectivity to the Greenway. 33rd Street, where you have the elevator going down, just wanted to point out there's no crossing there to get to the other side of the Greenway. So I just want to make sure in your plans you're including allowing a seamless transition from people who are in your new public space, the nice park there, to be able to get to Hudson River Park. And that kind of goes to the meeting we had earlier with State DOT of just advocating for connectivity across that giant highway.
Yeah.
And then
just on that, I think we did plan this a little bit on purpose, hoping you guys would be listening into our earlier conversation about some of our bigger ideas for the west side. And so, to the extent, you already are starting with an elevated platform, which doesn't sound like the worst place to start putting a bridge in across nine lanes of highway. So, to the extent that is something you could look into, we would certainly appreciate it.
Last thing that I'll say is just cycling connectivity to the Greenway as well. 33rd Street, if it's an elevator, then bikes aren't going to be taking that. So I would consider a two-way bikeway on 30th Street and 34th Street. I know that's a block out of your purview, but having that connectivity of two-way bike lanes, connecting people from the west side Greenway and the beautiful new bike lane we'll be putting on 11th Avenue in front of all this would be fantastic.
Okay.
Any public bathrooms?
Question on public bathrooms.
I'm not sure what's in the plan. I believe there are some bathrooms planned for the Hudson Grade. We can get back
Well,
to you.
remember, in the resort, the public lobbies, all that are all public space anyway, so there'll be bathrooms in the public portions of the resort all over the place.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions, comments, Kieran?
Very tiny question. Many of the public spaces that you have, besides the Harlem between 30th and 34th, where you have the vessel, you are not even allowed to walk your bike. And there's a sort of security folks that actually stop. So if you want to cross over to go to the greenway, you cannot actually go through the parts where you have the vessel. I don't know if you know that. They actually make you take your bike back downstairs and go across. Is that your policy? Because that's exactly how it's been presented to me personally. Is that going to continue? Meaning the public spaces that you would create, would they ban people from walking the bikes?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
I'm gonna
With all the bikes and pedestrians and people and cars coming in, we have another industry that's in our neighborhood, and I could see them, envision them going over to that area, and that's the pedicab. How are you going to deal with that industry in terms of, allocating space?
So you thought about pedicab access to your, or whether that'll affect anything in your terms of your plans?
It hasn't come up before. We can evaluate it. We're happy to work with you.
But we also, if somebody's in a pedicab, they're not in a cab or an Uber, so it would be probably substitutional to those other cars when there's plenty of curb access for those vehicles. So if there's access for them, there should be access if somebody pulls up in a pedicab.
Okay. I'm gonna put myself next because I know Christine has a lot of granular items that she's gonna get into. I'm gonna just ask a few more big picture questions and I'll turn it over to Christine, and then we will open it up for public comments online, even those in person. So I'd like to just start with I think there was a slide on the times of the crossings that you studied. I think there were, when you were expecting the most foot traffic, when you're expecting barrier traffic, and those are the different times that you studied in terms of impacts to the various intersections. And so, right. So my question is simply, I imagine, I don't know what your plan is for your resort space and the casino, should you be awarded that license, but assuming it is an operating casino, that is typically a 24/7 operation, which would be new to this area and significant. And so I'm a little bit concerned that your studies are not looking overnight, or not considering what our overnight traffic looks like, what overnight access looks like. And I'm not saying that it's going to be, our streets are going to be overwhelmed with people coming, but I am curious what that does and how that might reverberate, and I do want to make sure that we are thinking about that. So I'll let you address that first.
Let me answer the 24-hour issue, and then she can answer sort of the 24 study. You're right, it's normally a 24-hour facility. The peak is in the evening, and the way the peak hours were selected is when you have the most traffic, both from us, but also from the office, the residential, and also the background traffic. So the peak hours were studied in order to make sure we could handle the peak capacity. But you're right, with a 24-hour operation, there is some traffic during the night. It's not a lot, but there is traffic. The peak hour is usually 7 to 9 at night because then you overlap dinner time, commuting, and gaming. But there would be people coming and going theoretically around the clock.
Yeah, and that's right.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And that's exactly what we took into consideration, the background traffic, where even after the commuter peak, it stays relatively high. And you have a ramp up of the resort traffic simultaneously in that 7 to 9 stretch. So we did study the worst case peak hour in that respect, and the traffic kind of tapers off in the overnight hours. So the condition would be much more favorable than what we studied.
I saw, you addressed our questions about, parking. And you noted that, the amount of parking is significantly reduced from your 2009 proposal. Which on one hand is good, right, because it suggests that, you're expecting fewer cars and fewer, cars on our streets blocking our streets. But I do think the uses are quite different when we're talking about a hotel, resort, and casino versus all these apartment buildings where people would come in and stay parked. And I am concerned on the flip side now, it's one thing to have, people coming down the West Side Highway or 11th Avenue and parking in your facility. It's another thing when your facility actually can't handle the amount of parking, and then those cars start spilling deeper into Chelsea. So if you could speak to how you reached your parking capacity, and if you have any thoughts on anything I just said.
Well, I guess, yeah, maybe Chi can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Chris, in the early planning part of this, we came up with a reasonable number of parking spaces serving the resort, which I believe is 500 spaces. It's a significant amount because obviously you have a lot of turnovers from the visitors. Those spaces don't get occupied all the time. And again, as we described early on, our analysis is very conservative and projected much higher than what we think is going to happen there. But it's also a chicken and the egg question. I think we want to provide a suitable number amount that we know for sure need to be used, but don't want to provide more than necessary so that to encourage people driving here. There is a wealth of resources in the surrounding area. We did study them and disclose what the anticipated conditions would be in the surrounding area. And we all know from a policy standpoint, if there's not enough parking, hopefully people find other ways, other means to travel to and from the site.
And just to add to that, and by the way, also, as Andy can explain, the office building and the residential building were a key part of all this. I mean, the resort's only one piece of it, but when we look at these resorts, we always try to figure out how much parking to provide. And some traffic folks will tell you parking doesn't induce traffic. I'm not sure I totally agree with that. And in a site like this, one of the reasons we picked it is it probably has the best public transportation access of any site we've ever looked at in the world. I mean, it has fantastic train access, water access, bike access. So we from the very beginning thought of limiting parking. We picked 500 spaces because you need a certain amount for whether it be valet, whether it be for handicap spaces. We wanted a certain amount, but we didn't want to build, thousands. In Boston, we have 3,000 spaces. In Las Vegas, we have more. This was not a site that needed thousands of parking spaces. So we think the 500 is a good number. And we don't feel there's any need at all for any more. We think that'll push people into alternative modes, which is what we want.
Yeah. So I appreciate those answers, and I especially, I'm not encouraging you to build more parking, but I just wanted to hear what you had to say on that in terms of finding the right balance. But I especially appreciate those answers just as a recognition of all of the public transportation that would be available to your customers and clients, you have been approached this project with an assumption that I assume is based on Wynn's other properties that you expect, and obviously New York City infrastructure, that you expect 75% of your customers and clients to arrive via public transportation, about 25% via cars or buses, so private buses. My question to you is, what can you do to increase that number, right? I don't want you encouraging car traffic, but I would love you to be discouraging car traffic and getting people to use our public transportation. So how can you be part of that solution as the West Side, not just you guys, but as you pointed out, all of the other projects happening around you are taking shape. So we want you to be part of the solution here. So help us.
Let me talk for the resort, and then Andy can talk for the residential and the office building. At the resort, we have aggressive TDM programs at all of our resorts, especially in North America, because people in, first of all, you have to make sure there's other modes that are available. In this case, there are, so we're very lucky. As far as, for example, employees are not allowed to park at all, and they're not going to spend the money to Uber or park in a downtown parking lot. So that pushes 100% of the employees to some alternative mode. It's almost always going to be train. As I mentioned in Boston, it's become incredible number of bikers, which kind of amazes us. But in any event, so take the employees off the list because they don't, they're not going to park and they're not going to pay to park in a nice spot. So then you've got all the customers. The customers in New York, the advantage, we not only have train access, we have good train access, meaning, clean, nice, safe. So we'll promote that with the concierge service. We'll promote it on our website. We'll promote it in social media. We also will provide, on-site ability to get train passes. We do a lot of work with making sure that people have access. They know where bike access is. We have maps available. We have incredible websites. So we aggressively talk to customers. If they show up and they're visiting New York for a couple of days, they're staying with us. The transportation question comes up all the time. How do I get here? How do I get there? What's the easiest way to do it? And we aggressively promote that. So we'll keep doing that as we've done elsewhere. And we can.
So would you be able to make a commitment in terms of your marketing? I imagine you'll have signs up at LaGuardia and JFK saying, here come to Wynn Resort in Chelsea. And here's the estimated time by train. Here's if you take the subway, here's if you take the LIRR. And I would love a commitment from you if that marketing didn't include a time estimate of taxi or Uber. Is that something you can commit to?
The big picture answer is definitely. The little picture answer is I don't know exactly how we'll do it. I don't want to commit to putting a sign up at LaGuardia because I don't know if anybody reads signs anymore. But I think we could, certainly with social media and all the other things we do, we have no problem getting information out to our customers. So as far as will we commit to promoting alternative modes through our own marketing campaigns? Absolutely.
That is wonderful to hear.
Our business is built on customer service, and there's nothing worse than a customer shows up checking into a hotel at night and they're really upset about the time it took them to get there. They couldn't do this, couldn't do that. So we work hard to make sure there's an ease of transport in and out. So yes, we'll be happy to promote all different modes of transportation.
Thank you.
The other thing I'd just like to point out on that point is so the cross usage, right? So not only the hotel, but in a significant way, with regard to the Javits Center and the hotel and the people who are already coming to this neighborhood for one reason or another. That there are people who will now stay, right here at a large hotel next to the Javits Center that otherwise would have traveled, much farther out, and that can take some trips, out of the system, which should be helpful.
And Andy, do you want to talk about the residential building and the office building for multimode?
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's sort of a similar story, in terms of, accessibility, right? We talked about parking and what's available. We have found that, we've been able to attract a lot of companies to office space here based on, not based on parking, certainly. It's based on transit and it's based on access to the whole region. So I think, that story continues as we move west.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have one more question, then I'll turn it over to Christine, who I will have, I'm sure, numerous questions and comments for you. But my last question is, we as a community board, as a committee, have been working very hard to have the heliport on the west side shut down. We believe that is happening, that is underway, that we are headed in that direction. I am a little concerned, if not very concerned, that you fine folks might take a different position and get in the way of the closure of the west side heliport, which has been a nuisance to all of our residents here. And I would like just another commitment from you that if one, it'd be wonderful if you took a position, agree with us, but at minimum, you take no public position and you don't get in the way of the closure of the heliport.
So I guess what I would say on that front is that the planning for the resort and the gaming here is totally disconnected from anything tied to the heliport. So it's not it's not a requirement of our plans or anything like that relative to the resort. So that really is a separate issue.
Yeah, we're not counting. We're not counting on the heliport. Honestly, we know it's a hot potato. We're not. You will not hear us advocating to keep the heliport from the wind side.
Okay. I don't want, and hearing publicly, or I don't want to hear privately either, that you were lobbying our electeds, but again, I'll choose to take you at your word. That's it from me. Oh, one last just comment, and then which is also just sorry, to the extent that you can look at helping improve, ferry service, whether that's even creating your own ferry is not, or is one next door, is right there for you. You're on the water. We really, we ask you to consider that and consider when you're looking at the resources you want to spend on how to get people to your property, that you consider ferry access and increasing ferry access, because I do think that's a wonderful way to bring people into the city. And now I'm done. Sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to start with pedestrians. Obviously, you mentioned that you are going to put neck down extensions at some intersection, and it was not shown on your PowerPoint. Can you tell us about that?
Right. I mean, it is driven by capacity needs. I think what we identify is at the site at 33rd and 11th Avenue, with the concentration of pedestrian flow at that corner, that there would be a need for additional capacity. So it is a mitigation that would be proposed for DOT consideration. It's not something that is part of the base plan.
Okay, and then, all right, and so the next thing is that the sidewalk time width, just for everybody's edification, at that corner, they are going to have 3,804 pedestrian per hour, which means pretty much 60 pedestrian at every cycle.
Yeah.
So that is really ugly. There are two other, the southeast corner is that's the southwest corner. Southeast corner is 3104, so it would be a good idea to have an extension there. And then Hudson Boulevard East and West 33rd is 2000, which could use also some mitigation. Sidewalk width, when we look at 33rd Street, it is a disaster based on the numbers, based on the size of the sidewalk. So what are you going to do about 33rd week? I mean, 6 segments of 33rd week cannot be mitigated. So what are you going to do on it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right now that's something we have to think about a little bit more, because that is the desire line to get to the subway.
Yes.
And we expect most people will use that route, and we are projecting quite a bit of people using that route. And the numbers are high, and there's quite a bit of street furniture that we couldn't really remove. But I think once you get to the open area, before you even get to Hudson Boulevard, the pinch point kind of widens out a little bit. And because 33rd Street over there is not really high traffic volume, and given that there's no longer means, even though it is not available today, no longer means to continue through to Route 9A, the traffic would be low enough so the pedestrian conflict is unlikely to be an issue. So we'll continue to take a look at that too.
I think you need to do something from Monahan. People are going to come from Monahan. People are going to come from the Long Island Railroad. I mean, you strongly want that, right? And they are going to use 33rd Street. And I think you need to seriously consider a sidewalk widening on 33rd Street.
Yep.
Because it is already a problem today. For the people coming from the Eastern Rail Yard, trying to go to Monahan, it's really bad.
Just over to the meeting.
So I think you need to you need to do something pretty drastic there, which gets people all the way to Monahan Station.
Well, we'll take a close look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. And then you have crossing along 31st and 10. And I mean, you know, there is a lot of, and then you say, well, the solution is changing the signal timing. But when we come to the traffic and the cars, you say, oh, we're going to change the signal timing too. So who is going to win, right? Between those two, we can't be changing the signal timing for everybody and benefiting everybody. So I don't think that works. The curb cuts. So I didn't understand, can you help? You said there is 150-foot curb cut on at the turnaround. Can you explain that, or did I misunderstood?
Yeah, you know, as we talked about this with city planning, it's really, you know, the full width of the extent that turnaround encroaches onto the property line, south of the property line. So it's not 150 feet wide of road, but, you know, the turnaround, there'd be an island in the center. And so, you know, it captures that full width. So we can show you some more detailed plans about it, but it's just the ability to make that turnaround come off of the, you know, right away that's part of the existing city street and move it on to our property line.
Okay. So the next question is, oh, you made an analysis of the high crash safety corrective measures. And I mean, you know, these corrections make no sense. They are like, I don't know, it doesn't say anything. I think you need to really go and do some speed phase signal and protect pedestrian, because a lot of those are pedestrian which are in the crosswalk. And they are, so there need to be some mitigation there. Bikes, we talked about it. Parking, we talked about it. So let's talk about the buses. So your traffic analysis showed that there are going to be 8 buses. I think this is probably way too low, because in Boston, you have like 36 stops per day.
We get about 1 bus a day in Boston.
Oh, you do? I mean, because when I go on your website, that's what it says.
On our website?
Yeah.
Does that mean public buses out in the street, or does that mean buses stopping at the resort?
No, the buses that stop from the Encore company or something like that. One of your.
I'd have to look at what.
Yeah, you have to look at it, because
Okay.
that's what it says. So.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so eventually you're going to have 8 buses. You show a layover on 12th Avenue, but you know, this is not our idea of where buses should be parked. They shouldn't be parked in the street, because we are on the bus terminal spending $10 billion to bring all the buses from the street into the terminal. So why can't you put the buses in your parking?
You mean put them inside the parking garage?
Yeah.
Well, it would make the building a lot bigger, right? To park buses, you'd have to make the garage a lot taller. I mean, it'd be quite a big, it's a different garage if you put buses in there.
Depends how it is designed, but you should be designing that.
It would be pretty unusual to store the buses inside our parking garage, inside the podium though, right?
So Christine, one thing we didn't talk about today is the fact that there's a lot of LIRR infrastructure on the lower level of the podium, so there isn't a lot of additional space down there.
Well, I think you need to find a place for the buses, because they must not be in the street. Eventually. So this is not the proper place for buses. Unless you want to go and rent a parking lot somewhere and park them there. But even with the parking lot, we have had mixed experience where people are idling, and it's not good. It's not good. And second, why aren't the buses using your turnaround to go and deliver people?
I'm sorry, what was the question? The turnaround?
Well, I mean, you know, you are showing the buses dropping people in front of the building. And in fact, they are dropping it in front of the park, which means that a lot of people are going to use the park to get into the building, which is not necessarily ideal. So why isn't it that you have now a private street to deliver cars, and why don't you do buses there?
Well, well, first of all, it's not a private street. 33rd continues to be a public street, but if we put buses there, it would take the place of some of the cars, and then the cars would be out on 11th, right? So I mean, it's a zero sum as far as how many.
That's fine, we prefer that.
We can look at it. We can look at it.
The way it should go, the way it should work is that you get your buses coming in 33rd Street, you know, drop off people and get in your parking, because you have entrances to the parking. And that's where you put your 8 buses, 9 buses, 10 buses. And that's really the way it should work. So that there is no impact to the community, and it doesn't look like you know, buses don't look good for customers. If people come and pay money, they don't want to see all these buses in front of it. Not good.
We will definitely look at it. We're happy to look at it.
Where are these buses coming from, by the way? I mean, where are they, what are the 8 buses and how are they estimated?
From New Jersey?
No, but I'm just wondering, I mean, I assume that they're gonna be, they're private. Where are you expecting to be transporting people from?
Right. Most of them, and as I said, we average about 1 a day, so there's not many of them. And most of them are private groups that charter a bus.
Right.
So we have groups from community groups.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can have a company which has a shuttle who's going to
Right, that's
decide
what I wonder.
to
That's
say,
all I'm
hey,
trying to come down.
let me take you from
Yeah.
East New York to here, right?
Right.
I can see what's this limo company which goes to New Hampshire.
Hampton Jitney.
The Hampton Jitney, I can see the Hampton Jitney taking a shot at that. So anyway.
Most of them are, I mean,
yeah.
my office is in Boston, and the bus, when we see buses there, it usually parks right next to my window, so I can see them. And most of them are everything from community groups to veterans groups to church groups to elder homes. I mean, they're just groups that want to get out for the day. So they're usually
it's
during
more
the
than
day.
one bus, right? It's more than one bus.
Well, no, I've got the numbers here. I can go through them with you, but we've got all the data from last year in Boston.
Oh, it's only one bus, okay. Back to one bus. Okay, so listen, the volume of cars is horrendous. At 11th and 33rd Street, on your analysis, it's a plus 1,200 cars on 11th Avenue. I don't know how we're going to do that. It doesn't work. You can't have, today there is already 1,200 cars, and we're going to do plus 1,200 cars.
That's traffic.
No, I mean, it just doesn't work. We need to find a way to have less cars coming in. And that's really an issue. I mean, you know, it's going to be unlivable. And you need to find a way to have less cars. Like on Saturday, it's going to be plus 16, 20, 26. I mean, it reminds me of the stadium. It's crazy. So I think this is really, your mitigation consists in reducing green time on the avenues and increasing them on the streets. But if you reduce the green time on the avenue, where are the 1,600 going to go? It's just, when I put everything together that you're proposing, each of the things work, but together it doesn't work. So you need to rethink that in a way that works for you, and it's really, and it doesn't look like the cumulative impact with the Port Authority have been studied. For example, on 37th Street, there are going to be plus 150 cars from PA, and then plus 47 from the project, which is essentially a 90% increase at that intersection, which happened to be, you know, downstairs from me. So, I mean, you know, this is not working, like, this is not working. So, and finally, the construction, you're going to construct that while the Port Authority is constructing, and Gateway is closing 10th Avenue. So that seems to be problematic. So you know, we'd like to, we are telling you all those things to help. It just doesn't work. And that's my conclusion.
There we have it. Which is again why, you know, well, I think enough has been said. I just want to make sure for the last chance, while we have these presenters with us, representatives from Related, representatives from WIN, Any other comments, concerns, questions from the committee, and then we'll get to the public. Anybody else? Okay.
We're still gonna discuss it.
We are gonna discuss amongst ourselves, but we're gonna, this is the time to talk to these folks,
If we
so.
have opinion.
To ask questions.
We can't ask you.
All right, I'm gonna open up to the public. If you're a member of the public who would like to speak on this and you're online, please raise your hand now. Janine will move you over a few at a time, but while that's happening, we're gonna start with those in the room. I see one eager fellow. What's your name, sir? No, Paul, go ahead.
Jesse, let them know it's a minute to speak.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I wanna see how many people we have first.
Hi, everybody, Andy, Chris, and Elise, thanks, great to see you again, appreciate all your time coming to all of our meetings like this. I have not gone through the chapter 14 transportation section, which is what this committee is going to tackle. But a couple of thoughts. One is, Chris, you made mention, and I appreciate the fact that you're committed to making sure that your customers can get to these facilities, and you'll do whatever is needed to study in that. But I've noticed in other sections of this draft EIS, many responses are, that is outside of the secret scope, where this is within the, we're only studying what's within the guidelines of secret. For transportation particularly, glad to see that you have expanded the study area beyond a quarter mile to a half mile, which, as Christine points out, includes the Port Authority bus terminal. But unfortunately, your study concludes at 2031 at your build out, and Port Authority bus terminal will be building out longer than that. And so the impacts from this development on our community, combined with Port Authority bus terminal redevelopment and gateway, but those timelines are longer than 2031. And so I'd like to see if you would waive the secret requirements of only studying to build out, to look at further beyond when we have Port Authority bus terminal fully functioning and gateway construction ended.
You're saying do like a year, do some period of time after we open? Is that what you're asking?
2040.
Yes.
2040.
Yeah.
He wants you to do a
20
study of
2040, because that's when you'll be functioning and when our community
The
will
Port
be back
Authority
to functioning.
terminal will have the towers, which
Yeah,
is
the way-
even more.
The way we usually do that is monitoring after we open. Instead of doing studies, we do actual monitoring. I mean, that's what we're doing in Boston. That's what we're doing elsewhere.
I appreciate that, but the fact is right now, and you heard from Christine, a lot of these intersections aren't working given the study through 2031. When we add even more significant volume from these other studies that are projected beyond that date. So I'm just putting that out there. I will let the transportation.
That's a good question. And Chi, can you talk about how you did the background of the growth in the study?
Yeah, I mean, the no action condition incorporates, some 30 projects in the area, and the first phase of Port Authority build, which admittedly does not include its overbuild because that is projected to be further out in 2040. But I would say, I mean, there are a lot of conservative assumptions built in a lot of these studies, layering up all the expectations from these projects and the ridership that's been projected conservatively from Penn Station as well as Port Authority. You have congestion pricing coming in and 10, 15 years from now, the transportation behavior could change as well. So, this is what we allow to study for under seeker, and we try to kind of present, whatever we can find and disclose the potential impacts and mitigate them to the extent possible.
Thank you. And the other concern I have is in the interconnectivity between this site and the river for the ferries. So you talk about attracting people in by ferry service, but you have one elevator shaft at the corner of your property that goes to a highway with no crosswalk. So how do you integrate ferry service into when customers get into your city? That's something that needs to be better examined. So thank you, Transportation Committee. I look forward to your commentary.
Thank you, and definitely seconding your comment on the ferry. All right, Janine, who is first to speak from the public?
I brought Miguel and Adam over.
Okay, Miguel, take it away.
Transportation related. you remind everybody it's about transportation and not land use?
Yes, a reminder to anyone speaking from the public that we are trying to limit our comments and questions to the transportation effects of this proposal and not the land use itself, but obviously.
No other.
Time, or the other casino, but, sorry, Miguel, are you with us?
Yeah, I don't see him with his hand raised anymore, so Adam is next. Adam, stop.
Yes, hi. Let's see, just really quickly, to the folks proposing this project, thank you for bringing green spaces to 11th Avenue, which is sorely needed. And to CB4, I wanted to thank you for some really excellent questions. I've been listening this entire time, and the questions you're asking are fantastic. I would kindly ask that in the future that you try to find a way to not make the general public wait hours before saying even a few things. It really tires people out, and you're not engaging the public appropriately. So that's it. Thank you.
That's fair.
Fair comment. All right, thank you, Adam.
And Lorenzo.
Hello.
Go ahead. Yep. Toby.
Hi. Well, I'm a business owner and resident of the neighborhood. And regarding transportation, I think one of the things that's really important for us to be considering is that one, more traffic has been good for the local businesses, whether that be by foot, boat, train, etc. And then also, looking forward in 10 years in the future, I'm currently in a car that has no driver, if you can see. And like things are going to change over the next 10 to 15 years as to how transportation works. So projects like this and getting so caught up on buses and things like that seems to be working against ourselves, where what we really need to do is push as much as we can for smart business. And as they said, there's parks and other things that are really good for our residents. And again, I can tell you as someone who's been waiting for the High Line to open and how much that has negatively affected my business. The minute that staircase opens, there's more business to be had.
What type of business do you own?
I own Cucina Alba, which is in CB4 on 18th and 10th. And I also live in Hudson Yards.
That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. That's very helpful. Who's next? Lorenzo?
Lorenzo?
Lorenzo, if you're with us, you got to unmute. All right, let's move on. Janine, who? Oh,
I'm here.
Hey,
Hello. How you doing? This is Lorenzo Gaston. I want to speak on behalf of Local 580, and also I'm from the community that this project is going to be built in, and on behalf of 580 and the community, I just want to let the people know that we're definitely appreciative of you guys looking into putting this Hudson Yard project in front of us and allowing us to help build on this. I believe that this is a big project, and that not only would it affect, and positively affect the families and Local 580, I believe that this project is going to be helpful to the community. Just the community, but the families, members that's going to be supported from us working and helping out with this project. Also, the revenue that this project is going to bring in, as far as helping out with this community, and also the MTA, like I was told that it's like a $2 billion revenue that is going to bring to the MTA. That's also big, and I just want to let you guys know that not only is that this is going to have a big impact on this community as well as New York City, this is also going to help feed a lot of families of the union, the building trade, and I just want to give thanks to you guys for allowing me to speak and give my piece.
Of course. Thank you very much, and to everyone speaking, thank you for your patience tonight. Jesse, go ahead.
Good evening. Jesse Campbell-Moore, a resident of Penn South Co-ops, a former Community Board 4 member. I want to shout and echo part of what my brother Lorenzo had highlighted, and a little remiss that I didn't hear members of the board raise this. I previously served as a senior aide in the Cuomo administration in the middle of COVID, and there was no secret about the financial troubles that the MTA had been in prior to COVID, but layer COVID with that. And it was a really troubling situation. My understanding is this project would be over a $2 billion investment and funding opportunity for public transit, which is much needed. I think the alternative, as we see, are raising taxes, more congestion prices, and really putting the burden on working families to fund that gap. As you guys continue to deliberate, I hope you consider that and the working families in this community that could really benefit from that kind of funding. Thank you so much.
Can I ask, where do you get that $2 billion? I'm actually curious. I'm not familiar with that $2 billion figure. And if any of the presenters are able to address that, I haven't heard of a $2 billion commitment to the MTA from this project, but if that is part of this, I'd love to hear that.
Andy, you want to take it?
I can speak to that. I mean, the impacts are significant. We can get more details on the specifics of how much it is, but it's a combination of not only the taxes generated because we're on MTA property. There are some significant revenue streams that are associated with the development of this that would lead to revenues for the MTA. So in addition to the gaming taxes and all the other things that go along with that aspect of the project, there are some site-specific benefits that will really have a pretty substantial dollar figure associated with them attributable to the MTA.
Understood. I did think for a second, I was like, oh, perhaps there's an extra expenditure, but that would be great.
So there's revenue that would go to the MTA
Because
on
of
the
the
property.
lease, because of the lease of the platform.
The property, the arrangement between Related and the MTA would be different because it's a different land use than what was proposed.
And the development of the project, we have a payment in lieu of sales tax arrangement with the MTA. That's part of our existing arrangement. So anything that we build here generates dollars that go to the MTA. Also, obviously, we have lease payments and that kind of revenue stream is pretty significant as well.
Is that actually something that's different? I'm just surprised that this wasn't part of the presentation. Wait, is this actually different than other arrangements that if I'm building anywhere else in the city? Right. So it's going to. Can you just talk more about that?
I mean, on the sales tax side, yes, it's different, right? The MTA has an abatement ability for sales taxes, and the arrangement with us for this project is that they would abate that and then capture those taxes directly, the equivalent same amount of tax that would go to the MTA. And then we do that on the Eastern Yard, which generated significant dollars that the MTA has been able to utilize. So there's more on the west as we build.
But is it about this site or is it about a casino resort?
No, it's really different than the 2009.
It's about actually building on this site, moving forward with the development.
2009.
No different
It's
than
the same thing as
2009.
Okay, so that's
It's part of the package of 2009, right? Andrew?
This is an existing arrangement with the MTA on the site that is contingent on development of the project, right? So however that moves forward.
So this particular project, because it's a casino, doesn't change the formula. Okay, so for all those who are
not on that piece, but obviously there are dedicated revenue streams, and the state could weigh in more on that as to how the gaming taxes.
Okay, but that's regardless. So all the impact about revenue going to the MTA isn't a part of the calculus here because the money's going to the MTA, whether it's this project or the original proposed project. Okay, just want to make that clear, everybody.
Versus nothing, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's a question of timing, right? How quickly can we move ahead and get built to
If not
create
for
those tax
COVID, we'd
revenues.
already be opening it, so yeah.
All right, I've lost track of who's next from the public. Janine. Martin.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly mention my full support for the project. I transit through that area quite frequently, and mostly on the Hudson River Bikeway. So I'm I would love to see a better integration of that, on a connection to that. And I'm happy to hear that you're working towards maybe mitigating the heliport. But I think as a member of the community and as someone who has a business in Lower Manhattan that is also benefiting from additional hotel capacity, most of my out-of-town visitors are complaining about the horrendous lack of hotel rooms. I wanted to just voice my support, and I hope that the project goes forward. And I think that the traffic concerns are valid, but I do think that, as a previous speaker has said, by the time this opens, there will be additional modes of transportation. There will be mode shift, and we will have seen the impact of congestion pricing, and what that will actually bring and mean for individual.
So that's the God's ears. Okay. Thank you, Martin. Who's next?
Mayor? And then I just wanted to make a note, you need to promote yourself you need to accept to be promoted to panelist in order to speak. Otherwise, we can't call on you. So please accept.
Okay, here is Omar.
Omar, go ahead.
Hello, how are you? This is Omar. I'm an owner, business in the community. And we already see their work is not, they're not new to the neighborhood or to the city. We already saw what they did in the beginning in, the first project. And, I can say, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and we can trust them. We can trust them on what they are doing because we already seeing it, in our eyes and to the neighborhood. And they just got the neighborhood, better. I've been there for almost 25 years in this neighborhood, so I see in it how it used to be and how it changed and how will be changing. So, that's we need that project in the neighborhood. We definitely need it.
Thank you, Omar.
You're welcome.
And it is next.
Sorry, who's next?
Janet.
Janet. Janet, you're muted. There we go.
Can you hear me? Okay, amazing. Hi, I'd also like to voice my support for the project. I work for a tech company that's provided POS ordering systems for several local businesses, cafes, bars, restaurants in the area for a few years now. And I absolutely think a project like this that would bring in a lot of business, and along with all of the affordable housing units, the office spaces, the more luxury housing units as well. I think that's exactly the kind of business development it needs, along with all the construction jobs. My father's worked construction in the area as well for years. I could definitely see this being something that not just benefits my family, but a lot of the others, along with local business owners. I think that bringing in a lot of tourists that are actually able to help contribute to New York City's economy would absolutely be of benefit to all of the current residents in this region. Along with the green space. I mean, I would love to have that in my backyard. I don't know about you guys, but having our own green space the size of Bryant Park, I think would definitely be a step up. So thank you. Thank you guys for hosting this, by the way, and allowing us to drop input. Appreciate it.
Of course, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Jenny.
Hi, so I'm a resident of New York City, and I feel like the development is very much needed to improve the economy. I feel like traffic is inevitable for like economic improvement, and given that this project is going to bring 35,000 union construction jobs and also 4,000 permanent jobs, I just think it's like very much needed. In the previous, one of the previous speakers said how it was like very much needed for working families. So I think we should also think from a working family standpoint.
Thank you very much for your comment, Jenny. Janine, who is next?
John is in. He's kind of.
Sorry? John? Okay, John, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. So thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to also express my strong interest in the project. Not only will there be a ton of jobs for local workers and families, but I believe that it will also drive surrounding small businesses to get more foot traffic, which has already been said, and along with other affordable housing units and public parks and schools that serve the local families. I believe that it will enhance the quality of life for a lot of the residents here. I believe that it's just a one in a generation opportunity to create jobs, build housing, improve our community, as well as drive economic activity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. John, you live in CB4? John?
Yeah. I do live in New York City. I actually work around there as a research assistant.
Great. Thank you. Maxine?
Hi, I just wanted to express my strong support for this project because of what it will mean for me, my family, and those who live and work in the area. It's easy to forget the impact that a project like this has for working people, families, and local business owners. Some people react poorly to change, while others are quick to oppose virtually anything without truly thinking through the real-life consequences. Because this project will generate so many construction jobs and permanent jobs to the area, which is really needed in this economy. It also includes affordable housing, public park, and a new public school, which would, I think, really help the community to thrive, especially during these hard times. And these aren't just numbers, they're people with obligations and challenges to their life. And I hope that you'll take that into consideration when you make your decision.
Thank you, Maxine. Janine, anybody else?
I believe that's everyone.
I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you, Janine. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's everyone?
Yeah, I think that's everyone. I don't see any more hands.
Okay, well, that then concludes the public session of this evening on this topic. And now we are going to
Jesse,
turn
I'm
to.
sorry. Miguel Acevedo wants to speak.
Oh, all right, we got Miguel. Miguel?
Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically what I want to say is two things. One of the things that the president from WIN mentioned, which is very important, is the jobs. First of all, he mentioned how no employee would have the opportunity to drive to the location. Fulton and Elliott Chelsea are within walking distance of this project. And we can create multiple jobs, what we've been asking for so many years. The hotel industry brings jobs to anybody. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work at a hotel. And I know many of the families that live in Fulton and Elliott Chelsea are looking for this opportunity to work at this hotel when it does open up, and at the casino if possible. And then the other thing that I want to mention is the question that I do want to ask Andrew is, they've been asking the Transportation Committee about pedestrians. Would you consider of having a shuttle go to Penn Station, 7th Avenue, Monahan Station to pick up people, so this way people don't take taxis or private services from the train station to there to eliminate some of the traffic that will go to the hotel?
Okay, sure. It's something we can look at. It's not something we've studied before, to have a shuttle. I think, we are only a couple blocks away from Moynihan. And so, we're hoping people will be able to make that walk. And that's probably, the most efficient way to get it done. But obviously there are existing, bus services on the M34 and some of the other existing infrastructure that will have to be evaluated to make sure that is sufficient, and we'll do that.
And then one of the other comments I want to make
to Ms. Bertay, Christine Bertay's concern about the buses. I actually hire 2 buses a year to take the senior citizens from Fulton Houses to Atlantic City. All the buses do, it goes into the hotel, drops the people off, leaves the hotel, and doesn't come back, goes to the Port Authority, wherever it goes. But it never stays within the neighborhood. It's just a drop off and pick up. That's it when we go to the hotels.
So, Miguel, I want to tell you, on my street, there are probably 20 buses parked, and I was wondering where they were coming from. They are probably coming from you.
I wish I could afford to take my senior citizens that many times.
So I'm serious. I understand what you're saying, Miguel. You have the perfect hotel, the perfect buses, and they are. But this is something that needs to be thought through, because when there are a lot of them, it's an issue, and we all need to think about it. You know, every other. So I know what you're saying.
Sure. All right, and now with that, thank you, Miguel. With that, we are definitely concluding the public session. We are going to now turn it to a committee discussion. So if representatives don't mind just hanging around, we may have a few more questions for you, but hopefully not. And now where we, well, actually, Paul, because you're here very helpfully.
Oh, we have a public session?
No, well, I'm gonna allow it, yeah, exceptions to that. If you don't mind just teeing us up on what the, how, Chelsea Clinton land use is, the letter you're writing, and then how we're adding to that.
He's not ready.
You're not ready to address that?
No, I mean, I'll just go through what I think I said at the beginning of the
Did
meeting.
you take a vote at the?
Right, yeah.
We have not taken a vote
Okay.
on the position. What we're doing, we've asked Related to come back to the Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee meeting in, not Chelsea, we're in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. Have them come back to our December meeting. So what we're asking people to do is take this draft EIS, there are 25 chapters, go through all the chapters, raise our questions, raise our concerns, and make sure that we get all those answers by that December meeting. So WPE is tackling 5 or 6 chapters affected to like air quality, open space, and that's it. So for this committee to give us the impact, you know, what you think of chapter 14, what is done right, what is done wrong, what we need to see improvements, and how that then can integrate into the overall position. We'll bring Related in. We'll try to have a streamlined list of questions for them on all issues in the DEIS. And then we'll formulate our letter that will then go to full board in January for voting out from there.
Let me ask you a question. Are you potentially, I'm not saying you are doing it, but are you potentially going to structure it on saying, you know, there is one alternate we like and the other one we don't like? Is that something that you could contemplate? Just because I'm saying that here, because one of them is much more, you know, difficult than the
Right, I
other.
mean, I think that what we discussed at Hell's Kitchen Land Use was that the 2009, we started with the 2009 land plan that exists is what we use as a baseline. Although secret regulations allow them to use this separate formula by eliminating 3 of the residential towers and eliminating 4,000 housing units, that is not the perspective we're taking, even if it's technically the way they're presenting a no action situation is to say what they could build by 2031. Because residential takes longer, those residential components aren't being considered as part of the no action plan. So because that's the no action plan, that's the baseline for them to make their studies from. And what they say is that it's conservative because by not having the 3 residential towers, but the full build out of the proposed casino, hotel, and all that commercial space, they're saying the impact of in 2031 of the full build out is greater than the no action because it doesn't include the 3 residential towers. So that's their perspective. We have a different perspective, but they're technically correct on that.
So you are saying.
So
No, I'm confused about what you just said. What you're saying, the 2031, they have excluded the residential tower.
Right.
So they are taking the project as it was then And then minus the residential towers.
What they're saying is that if they left 2009 in place and they would build
Right.
to 20, what they're saying is they could build this proposal with the casino. The casino is the action plan. They could build that by 2031. So what they're saying is the 2009 land plan that we have in place, because it's residential, that takes longer to build out. You can't build 5,000 housing
Right.
units and sell them all at the same time. It doesn't work. So their plan to build out the 2009 plan, by 2031, they wouldn't have 3 of those residential towers completed.
Right.
So by 2031, they're comparing to what could be built under the current land plan.
Which is essentially office and hotels, right?
No, it's in the 2009 plan, it's the 6 residential towers with some integration of commercial and retail in that, but predominantly residential. So they're saying that, and I think there's at least a long she'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. So because residential, so they're applying to build a casino in 3 towers. They're saying that can be done by 2031. The land plan we have in place is 2009 land plan. That's 6 residential towers, but it would take longer to build that.
So how many
So
residential towers are left in the plan?
3. They eliminate 3 in their calculations.
Right.
So.
And why do we
they're-
care about that?
Well, because we care about the original, the land use committee is saying that original land plan is what the plan is.
Right.
That's where we should be starting from. Okay. Now, the secret study is, with the casino being built by 2031, is a bigger impact than the full build out, the 2031 build out of
Right.
these 5 residential towers. So it's a weird comparison.
Okay.
So I think our baseline is plan not to be adjusted, leave this plan in place that we negotiated in 2009 and fought for. They're saying we can build, we have other reasons why and they have a lot of other reasons why they want to build a different plan. And so they're saying, this is the plan we want to build. So this plan is, the impact is actually greater than what would be built by 2031 under the 2009 plan. But then we said to them also, as part of the scope, was to say, if you don't get a casino permit, what will be the alternative plan? So the alternative plan is a 3rd plan, which
Yeah.
is the no casino on the city block of
Office and hotel.
Site C.
Right.
And there's an office.
That's no action plan.
No, that's
That's
I'm talking.
that's the alternative plan.
I'm
So the no action plan, sorry, is.
Is what was the original thing minus 3 towers.
Yeah, minus the
Right.
3 towers.
And then there is the casino and then there is
plan,
the.
which is the casino, and then there's the
Alternative
alternative plan, which is the same basic square footage of the casino plan, but configured slightly differently with a residential and office tower. So, but the greatest impact honestly on transportation is likely to be the casino. That's gonna be the heaviest traffic, so.
No, that's what it says
Yeah, but when
in
we
the
look at the
numbers.
greatest impact, when you were asking about peak, weekday peaks and 24-hour issues, it's, when you're looking at the greatest possible impact, you look at the greatest time peak, right? So at 2 in.the morning, there's not gonna be as much traffic as there's going to be on a Saturday night at 7 p.m. So you look at the Saturday 7 p.m. as the heaviest load, and what is the capacity? So looking at the casino impact is the greatest impact that we will experience.
Yeah.
So
That's what it is. That's what I was reading.
so that's the highest impact. And if we look at what is the worst case scenario on sidewalk capacity, bike lane capacity, bus traffic,
Alright.
parking, all that, that's.
So what's our, we're just,
Well,
the procedurally, I just wanna know where we are.
Yeah, I think procedurally, we can, as a committee, say, okay, these are the things we want. If that plan, goes, these are the risks, these are the impacts, and it works or it doesn't work. And then we provide that to the land use people and say, because we are not making the decision about yes or no for the project altogether, we are emerging the risk and the mitigation for each of the options.
Right, and then each of these components and all the various committees, the board is going to send that in, and then we'll have to sift through it and say, well, transportation committee says this ain't no way it's gonna work. But WPE might say their stormwater treatment is so fantastic, it's gonna solve the world's problems. And then we're gonna bind a bind.
But I mean, we can say these are the different, the different configurations. And whether they work or not, my assessment is that they do not work. And I mean, they would have to do a lot of mitigation, but on the top of that, I think the volume of traffic kind of does not work. And so that's the bottom line is like, it just doesn't work, and how are they going to make it work?
So what I did with Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee is we took various pieces. Some of us are tackling individual chapters, some of the other committees are tackling chapters. So even within here, because transportation is massive, you may take different pieces, compile all your notes together, and then send them over to us that way. I also would recommend that you do take a look at, if you say the casino plan itself, the casino is the worst, that doesn't work at all, but their alternative plan may have some feasibility to it. That'll be helpful for us to understand.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that leaves us with,
Yeah, so, I don't feel like we got much of a presentation in terms of impact from their alternative versus the base plan, so I think. We have to dig more into the plan to get those nuances.
Right.
I mean, I think the automobile issue is a lot more straightforward because. When it's residential and commercial, like the original plan, people drive their car, in Manhattan, car ownership is under 10%. So not a whole lot of parking, and a lot of the people, let's face it, it's their second or third apartment. They're not even here driving their cars around. When you bring in a casino resort, even hotels without the casino, the number of trips. It just is not comparable. It's off the scale, so I think what we're dealing with is. With all the congestion that we're dealing with now, we're gonna add this on top of. What we've already got, and with all the other development, are we reaching a point of supersaturation? Is it gonna be like with the Highline on a perfect Sunday afternoon? Where there's only room for the tourists to squeeze through and the neighborhood is locked out? Or do we think that we can still walk down 31st Street or somewhere in the neighborhood to get to the Hudson River Park or wherever we're going, because this resort has mitigated enough of the traffic issues that it's not a nuisance for the people.
Yeah.
But
that's not pedestrian, that's really the automobile.
Well, but I'm gonna address pedestrian because I do come and I use Moynihan and Penn Station, and I Monday through Friday get crushed right now.
Really?
Okay,
On what street?
coming out of Moynihan, like frankly, and the subways. The truth is you do have to take in consideration that people are using subways. I am sandwiched between people. There's no waiting, they always say another train's right behind. Trust me, I've tried that. I've gotten off, I haven't gotten on, and the second train is just as crowded. I'm not hearing here how that is going to be dealt with. If it's bad now, it's only gonna get worse.
Yeah, I agree with you. As someone who lives near this proposed site, I'm really concerned about the quality of life. While I value and appreciate the jobs, the proposed jobs, I'm thinking about as someone who lives there. And just as Tina said, we already see crowds, I see traffic, pollution. So I'd like to hear more, see more, like what can they do to sort of mitigate what we're inevitably would run into.
So, I mean, it sounds like, we're gonna be putting together, again, it's not gonna be, how this all shakes out in terms of the board's position is really gonna be,
Driven by
land use. But I like Christine's suggestion of sort of taking all of our comments, concerns, and proposals and requests and demands, because it's possible that it comes out as a no unless. And in that case, if it's a no unless, let's get our unlesses in there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we've heard all of our, we've had time to do our questions and concerns here. And, Christina and I can put together something, but also we have a little bit more time based on, a couple more weeks, to go really dive in, if you haven't had a chance to already, to chapter 14, when the appendices that we pointed out, so that if there are other issues that you spot, now would be the time to get that to us. That's probably the best way to go about this. Because I do think it may come down to, everyone trying to figure it out for themselves at the end of this on how they want to vote and how they feel about this project. But for us, the most productive thing we can do is to have our voice heard. And so, that, I guess the vote, that would be the vote here. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's what we were doing. I think that's.
Just one quick clarification. We voting only with the option they present, nothing about the alternative plans that we haven't seen.
The alternatives are considered in the material.
Yeah, I've looked at the alternative and it's not great.
Yeah.
It's really not great, but you have to think, I mean, if it was all residential, it would be a totally different story. Totally different. So as soon as you start to put a hotel and, offices, etc., the volumes are picking up. The residential is, we know, you are resident in New York City, you don't have a car and, most of the time you're going to go and get the subway, right? So that's completely changing the impact on the streets and
that just goes back in 2009, we had the parking and all that. So this is a lot different than back then, to me, it doesn't make sense.
so that's what it is. I mean, just obviously the preferred, from a traffic standpoint, the preferred case would be the original alternative, the original case, which was, park and residential.
Was the school in the original plan?
Yeah, the school is still there and all of that is still
Was
there.
33rd Street still interrupted in that plan too?
So that
Was 33rd Street still interrupted in that plan, or is that new?
that's new.
That is like such a serious concern. Like, that's so fundamentally anti-city, is interrupt the street grid.
That, what, on the other hand, on this one, I kind of understand because what you have there is Long Island Railroad. So you don't have the entrance to your building, you don't have anything. So if you leave it at the same level, this is a dead wall for the whole block. Because that's Long Island Railroad, that's the yards, right? So, I mean, bringing it up, and I am not in favor of that, I mean, just generally.
No.
But I would say in this case, I can understand why it kind of makes sense, because now you build a street which is at the level of the activity and at the level of the buildings, otherwise you would be along the railroad yard. And therefore you can't even get into the buildings, right? The railroad yard is down there and your building is up there, everything would have to have a
And I think
connection.
there's design strategies to mitigate that. Interrupting a street grid is still very, very serious. And, we're past the era of expanding superblocks, and that was making the largest.
No, and the other thing it does is that, from a traffic standpoint, you get, the cars and then they can't go, so they come back on 11th Avenue, right? So that's not ideal, but when I heard that the first time, they explained that, and I can see why in this situation, there is some logic to it, I would say.
I haven't seen my plan, but so I'm asking that vigilance maybe, but is there room for a new fire station, EMS station, because?
No, the
increased
EMS
population-
station is already taken care of and it's on 29th Street.
29th Street,
Yes.
okay, this I didn't know, but what about a fire, because it's gonna affect, fires, with the more people.
No, it's on 29th Street.
That's EMS, but what about firefighting?
No, they said they didn't need it.
Fires aren't allowed on this property.
So I mean, well, I guess I.
No, what we are
Good
getting,
fire
what we are getting on that property is a school and a daycare and a green space.
So,
right, these are the things, these
will
are the
all those apartments in the buildings be sprinkled? Because if not, then that's a huge problem in terms of fire, if they're not sprinkled. No, the residential.
The new residential would have to be sprinkled.
Yeah. It has
Yeah, it would be sprinkled, right.
and the casino school will only be teaching odds and probabilities.
That's funny. So this is what it is. I mean, you know, I'm not happy on the turnaround. But at the same time, I can see that the people, you don't want people walking along the rail yards. It's not going to get you anywhere as far as the quality of the street.
Except if you actually just raise the sidewalks, not the cars, which would be lovely.
Yeah, they show 127-foot wall. There's ways to terrace that, there's other mitigation strategies, but this.
You mean the wall which is on 12th Avenue?
Yeah, but also just from the grid in general, but when they did this in Tudor City way back when, right? I mean, they did this in Tudor City on the east side.
Yeah.
And it's very annoying to go make that elevation change and relying on an elevator or mechanical solution is not, that's not true accessibility.
But I think the mechanical, I mean, what is interesting is the connection to the ferry and to the greenway. Now you don't have that, right? So creating the connection, maybe that's one thing we definitely should put that in a requirement, is that there is a connection.
Yeah.
I'll go one step further. Javits Center was supposed to have a bridge going across. Maybe we should consider that option.
Well, that's what I think, exactly what we're talking about.
I think we should talk about
a bridge going across. All right, so I'm mindful of the time, but I think what we'll be doing is sending around circulate an initial draft of comments, but you know, I think we'll give everyone a couple weeks to look through and add to that. I think, but we still need to take a vote.
What are we voting on?
It's hard.
Can we just have like a plan to all?
The vote again is much like we've done the other ones. If you can trust Christina and I to sort of incorporate the comments and questions that we heard this evening, and which and then there we have some other things that we may not have seen before, but we will circulate all that.
But it would be a deny unless, right?
I guess so. It would be a deny
unless we have the mitigation and all the suggestions which are in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not making a comment on the casino at large.
We are not.
On this thing.
No.
We are not.
Not on the
Not
effect. On the effect.
For clarification on whether or not we address the casino, the impact of a casino development.
Right.
In regards to transportation.
With regards to transportation, assume casino being built for transportation purposes.
Yeah, that's alternate A, I mean, that's their plan.
And then the alternative
Is the other one, right?
Okay,
so. We should also make a reference to 2009 as well, so that sort of contextualize what.
Transportation impact from 2009 versus
my
this.
God.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. So, we need to go start writing, so.
Yeah, so there you go.
There you go.
I did that in 2009.
All right, so it is a denial.
No, but the problem of, I'm sorry, the problem of 2009 is that there was this was the first one, right, where there was the concept of a stadium there, right? Was it in the 2009?
That was prior to that.
Right.
Right.
This is 2005.
Stadium and then.
2005.
So the only question I have for the denial list though is again, which are we only discussing the casino proposal or versus an alternative versus? I don't even know if we need to do the denial list part, like I feel like our letter is not a letter, it's just comments. So why don't we just provide comments and concerns?
I think you are providing commentary on chapter 14.
Let's just do that.
Okay.
Rather than a position, because I don't know if we, like, you know, we might have our.
Enough.
Yeah.
Right, and also denying sort of brings into play the casino.
Exactly.
So I think
There's so much
that
more other
I think
factors that we don't have time to get to, so let's.
Yeah.
So, it is a simple letter providing our comments and concerns.
It's internal letter.
Internal letter, that's all.
Yeah.
Nothing complicated. Oh, right, our motion, thank you, Tina. Second, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Anyone opposed, saying, to our presenters, thank you so much, thanks for being with us and answering our questions, we really do appreciate it. We know that, this is a long process and there's a lot, you have to do, you have to speak to a number of stakeholders and we definitely appreciate your time. Everyone I can see is ready to go, so I'm gonna let you all go.
Thank you for having us and thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank
you.
Have a good night. And motion to adjourn.